What do you do when the person you've loved for years suddenly becomes the person you need to walk away from? Jessica had spent a decade trying to make her on and off relationship with Tyler work, always apologizing, always putting him first. But when Tyler's manipulative ways pushed her too far, she decided to stop trying to fix what was beyond saving. This time, she was finally choosing herself. Stay tuned to watch Jessica reclaim her life. My channel's struggling, so if you're intrigued, please comment 1 to help me out. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Subscribe to see how it ends, and I wish you all good health. Tyler and I had another one of our breakup arguments. This time, I thought I would handle it like when he first brought up breaking up at 18, retreating to the beach to cool off. But when I arrived, the beach was too cold. Instead of seeking solace, I decided to head back. As I walked, I passed by a dessert shop. I figured I'd be too heartbroken to even think about eating, just like I had been when I was 20. But to my surprise, the desserts were so good that I ended up enjoying myself far more than I expected. By the time I got home, I thought I would do the same thing I did at 22, 23, and 24, fall into the old routine of begging Tyler to take me back after one of his usual breakup stints. But something felt different. I realized I had been assigned a business trip. A month went by quickly, and during that time, my career flourished. My focus shifted, and for the first time, I felt like I was truly moving forward. Then Tyler called, unable to hold back anymore. "Why haven't you called to apologize yet?" It was only then that I realized I'd forgotten to reach out to him. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "I'm sorry. I've been so busy lately that I forgot to contact you. How about we just break up for good?" My friends had been talking about Tyler planning to propose to me, and when I heard this, I almost didn't know how to react. Tyler, as usual, seemed indifferent. "I don't need to propose. Jessica will definitely marry me, and then I'll have Brittany as the maid of honor. She's been asking me about it for a while now." His emphasis on Brittany as the maid of honor made it clear that he cared more about fulfilling that request than actually marrying me. I took a sip of water, then spoke calmly. "I already have my maid of honor, my college roommate, Megan. We promised each other that the first one to get married would have the other as their bridesmaid." Tyler didn't even look at me, dismissing me casually. "Well then, just add one more. I don't like too many bridesmaids." He paused, clearly irritated. "Brittany has never been a maid of honor. Can't you just give her a chance?" The silence that followed was thick. Our friends, who had witnessed so many of these random squabbles, remained quiet, used to this dynamic. They never interfered because I always ended up apologizing, and Tyler, after playing his usual cold act for a couple of days, would act like nothing had happened. They were tired of being peacemakers in a relationship that always seemed to go back to the same place. This time, I felt different. I stood firm and said with resolve, "No, thank you. It's my wedding and I want to make the decisions." Tyler approached me, his face hardening. "What if I insist?" I didn't respond. He knew the answer. His anger flared, and before I could stop him, he shouted, "Then let's break up. Jessica, don't contact me again." He slammed the door behind him, leaving the room thick with tension. The remaining friends looked at each other awkwardly. One by one, they tried to ease the discomfort. "Jessica, don't let it get to you. You'll win him back. Just go apologize and everything will go back to normal." I forced a smile but didn't respond. I stood up and walked away alone, my thoughts swirling. I stopped frequently, trying to clear my head. Memories of the years I spent with Tyler flooded my mind. We had fallen in love in high school, then confirmed our relationship in college. We had managed the challenges of a long-distance relationship and survived living together. At every stage, we had faced obstacles, and each time, I had given everything I had to fix things. I often asked myself, why does loving someone always feel so one-sided? Shouldn't love be about mutual compromise and support? But every time I considered walking away, another voice would pop up, reminding me, if you give up now, doesn't that mean all the effort you've put in was a waste? So I kept pushing, hoping, still waiting for the day when things would change. I was still holding on, still hoping that somehow Tyler would move, that we could finally have the future I dreamed of. As my thoughts wandered, I passed by that river, the one I used to jokingly call Tears River. It was near our school, and since my first heartbreak, it had witnessed the countless tears I shed in this relationship. But today it seemed colder than usual. Before I could even get sentimental, goosebumps crept up my arms. I quickly pulled my coat tighter and decided to head home to be sad in peace. Just as I turned around, I saw the dessert shop. It's funny, really, this shop was a frequent stop for me. Once, after a heated argument with Tyler, I came here, my anger clouding my mind. I ordered several different pies, but because I was still upset, I couldn't bring myself to enjoy them. The owner's baking skills had only improved over time. After dinner with friends, I was once again drawn in by the rich aroma of brownies coming from the oven. This time, I didn't order too much, fearing the same disappointment. But after finishing one brownie, I found myself wanting more, so I ordered another pie. As I busily savored the treats, my stomach felt content, and somehow my heart felt less empty. After finishing the dessert, I went back home. But as I stood at the doorstep, I hesitated. After living with Tyler for so long, the little house was filled with traces of our shared life. But when I opened the door and saw the overflowing trash bags that hadn't been replaced, the empty drink bottles that hadn't been thrown away, and the shoes scattered carelessly around, my anger seemed to outweigh the sadness of the breakup. It was as though the fire of my anger had burned away all my tears. After cleaning up everything, I opened my phone, planning to delete some of the photos of Tyler and me, fearing that I'd regret it later. Just then, I noticed a message from my boss in the work group chat giving me some feedback on my proposal for a project that I'm working on. By the time I finished handling work on the computer, the sky was beginning to lighten. To my surprise, the first day after the breakup had passed so easily. So, on this brand new morning, I took a deep breath and blocked all of Tyler's contact information. Tyler still hadn't come back. I knew he was waiting for me to apologize and beg him to come home. I also thought I would give in again this time. After all, I was used to it, and it didn't seem like such a disrespectful thing to let go of my pride for love. But every time I reached for my phone, something more important would interrupt me, either a meeting or a client to attend to. In the midst of all this business, I realized that it had been almost 8 or 9 days since I last contacted him. Without even realizing it, I had done something I never thought was possible, and I didn't feel the emotional torment I had expected. One morning during the weekly meeting, the manager told us about an important client who needed someone to go on a business trip to Los Angeles and stay there until the project ended, which would take at least a year and a half. Without thinking, I raised my hand. The manager looked at me and said, "Jessica, I really want you to go, but this will take a year and a half. Are you sure you can commit? Don't you have a boyfriend?" I immediately responded, "I'm single now." The whole meeting room burst into laughter. There was no hiding it. Everyone already knew the situation between Tyler and me, but after a lot of discussion, no one else was willing to go. After all, leaving the headquarters for a year and a half meant that returning afterward could lead to an awkward position in the company, and it wasn't the best move for their career trajectory. But for me, the main benefit was not just escaping from Tyler and getting some clarity on my emotions. More importantly, Los Angeles, where the client was, had always been a city I wanted to live in. Tyler had always refused to leave here. For him, no place was more comfortable than staying here, so he never wanted to go. Even when I suggested a trip, he firmly refused to let me go to Los Angeles, and my friends joked that he was afraid I'd go and never come back. I could only laugh at that. In the end, the manager chose me since I was the only one who volunteered. Before I left, he warned me repeatedly, "You can't quit halfway. No matter what happens with your boyfriend, you need to stick it out for the whole year and a half." I smiled and replied, "Mission accepted." The first few days in Los Angeles were incredibly busy. I worked 2 straight weeks of overtime, barely finding time to look for a place to stay, and had to stay in the hotel arranged by the client. It wasn't until the 3rd weekend that I finally had some time to explore. It was just as beautiful as I'd seen in the magazines, but being here in person, I could appreciate the many different aspects of its charm. I thought to myself, I really made the right choice by coming here. Here I was, a little surprised when I received a call from my mom. It had been over a year since our last argument when we parted on bad terms. Ever since I turned 25, they had been urging me to marry Tyler, and now at 30, they still hadn't seen any results. So they had secretly found Tyler's contact information in my phone and reached out to him. I could already imagine how harsh their conversation must have been, and sure enough, Tyler didn't speak to me for an entire month after that call. My mom has a really pleasant voice, but I never understood how she could say such uncomfortable and upsetting things. She asked, "You're not really planning to wait until you're 40 to get married, are you? My God, do you want me to become an old woman who can't walk before you have your wedding? You wouldn't be that cruel, would you?" I rolled my eyes, trying to stay calm. "Mom, even as an old woman, you'll still be healthy, maybe even faster than me." "Stop exaggerating. I don't have time for your nonsense." Her voice turned sharp. "Your sister told me you and Tyler broke up. Is it true? You two would always get back together so quickly before, but this time I feel like something's wrong." Days without a word. "Did you finally break up for good?" I sighed impatiently, trying to keep my frustration at bay. "Just get to the point. I'm busy with work." "You have your father's temper." "No wonder you two can't stand being in the same room," she said, her tone starting to rise. "If you don't stop him from hanging up." I could hear her voice quickly becoming anxious. "Don't hang up. I just wanted to say, if you're free this weekend, I know a good young man introduced by your Aunt Lucy. You should meet him. He works in the same city as you." "Oh, wait, he might not be in the same city now. I forgot to mention, I switched cities for work." Her voice grew louder. "Why on earth did you change jobs again? You've always been like this, making decisions without telling me anything." I didn't want to argue again, nor did I want to make her upset. So, reluctantly, I asked, "Who's the person you want to introduce me to?" Her voice faltered for a moment, but then she continued. "Lucy says it's the son of your cousin's boss. I heard he has a good background. Would you consider it?" I could hardly believe she was saying this. The last time Aunt Lucy tried to set me up with someone, he turned out to be a robber. After I repeatedly refused, she even gave him my address. If Tyler hadn't shown up just in time that day, I don't know what would have happened. Later, I found out that the guy was the son of one of Aunt Lucy's clients. In an attempt to please him, Lucy didn't bother to vet the man and just sent my picture to him when he showed interest. She eagerly passed along my address without telling me a thing. I had no idea about any of this until after the fact. When I considered reporting it to the police, Aunt Lucy flat out refused to testify for me because she didn't want to offend her client. The matter was buried and nothing was done. I never expected this to happen again. If my mom were standing in front of me right now, I'd definitely be watching her carefully to see if she'd blush with embarrassment. I suppressed my anger and said, "I'm not going to agree to Aunt Luke's request." "You know what kind of person she is." Mom's voice continued through the phone. "Are you sure? Must you speak so sarcastically? It's just that the person Lucy introduced to you last year took advantage of you a little, and she cried and apologized afterward. He didn't know anything about him. Otherwise, why would she have introduced him to you?" I didn't feel like arguing anymore. "If you didn't know the situation, why would you still go ahead and introduce someone?" I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "Tell Lucy not to use me for favors. If she tries again, don't be surprised if I lose it on her. Don't blame me if she thinks I'm crazy next time." My mom's voice sharpened. "You're really ungrateful!" The moment I hung up, the world around me became quiet for the first time. I hadn't realized how beautiful silence could be. With newfound clarity, I focused on a project proposal, efficiently revising it and sending it off to the client. Moments later, I received a response with positive feedback, praising my work. I felt a small but solid piece of self-confidence forming within me. Relaxed, I casually posted on Instagram, "Wrapped up work, another easy day." The comments flooded in quickly. "Jessica, you're such a workaholic now. We've been trying to meet up for a week and turns out you've been buried in work at home. Girl, you're too busy with work. Someone's about to steal your boyfriend. You know that? Why haven't you taken down your breakup post yet? Don't tell me you guys haven't made up. Maybe you didn't try hard enough to surprise Tyler this time. You haven't gone to beg him back?" I replied to each one, "I'm on a business trip. Let's meet when I'm back. I don't have a boyfriend who's there to steal. I'm not getting back with him." As soon as I finished typing, my phone rang. It was Anna, one of our mutual friends I used to hang out a lot with Tyler. "Hey, Jessica, what are you up to?" "Work. Been busy lately." She hesitated for a moment before lowering her voice. You're still not back, huh? I stopped by your place the other day and knocked, but you weren't there. I'm in LA, won't be back anytime soon. She quickly said, I haven't seen you in a while. I wanted to catch up. I have time now if you want to chat. Her voice got even quieter before she finally said, Have you heard about Tyler and Brittany? I answered honestly, Not really, been too busy to keep up with anything. I had no interest in discussing them, but she kept going anyway. Tyler and Brittany have been everywhere together lately, showing up at parties as a pair, and for Brittany's birthday, Tyler gave her a huge diamond ring. Everyone's speculating they might be a couple, but Tyler won't confirm it, probably because he's still waiting for you to apologize. I suddenly laughed. Before she could react, I asked, Apologize for what? She paused, caught off guard. Wait, what? But you always apologized first. I just assumed I used to apologize because I cared, but what if I don't care anymore? Right as I finished speaking, I heard a cough on the other end, then a loud door slam. Anna awkwardly wrapped up the call. A few moments later, Anna sent me a long message. She started by apologizing for what happened, then talked about Tyler and Brittany, and finally ended with, Tyler definitely regrets it. He's been crashing at my place for 3 days, pestering me until I finally agreed to call you. He doesn't even like Brittany that much, but I still feel bad for you, Jessica. I've always thought you were amazing no matter what. I just want you to be happy. I was a kind girl, and I wondered had she purposely acted strange so I'd figure it out. But in the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I actually felt happy right now. That afternoon, the first blocked call appeared on my screen. Tyler. It was almost laughable. I had been gone for nearly a month, and this was the first time he had called me, only after his little test through Anna had failed. For the first time, I looked back at the past years with Tyler and thought none of it was worth it. Then a text message popped up from an unknown number. Jessica, where did you put my suitcase? So this is how the man I loved for more than 10 years will act in this situation. No emotion, no hesitation, no regret. Even now, he couldn't lower his pride. Even with such a flimsy excuse, he had to sound arrogant, as if saying one kind word to me might kill him. I didn't respond, but later that night, after a long evening meeting, I had a brief moment of weakness and picked up his call. Through the phone, Tyler's familiar voice came through low and slightly hoarse. Where are you? In my office. Why did you block me? I answered calmly. Because we broke up. His voice rose slightly. So breaking up means you have to block me? We've broken up so many times before. Why didn't you block me then? I replied just as smoothly. How do you know I didn't? In all our past breakups, did you ever try calling me? Wasn't it always me apologizing and begging to get back together? He repeated the question. Where you? It was the end of the workday, and my colleagues were passing by saying their goodbyes. I got distracted returning their greetings, completely forgetting Tyler was still on the line. After a long moment, I realized the call hadn't ended. I said, Hello? His voice came through softer now. This is the first time you've ever ignored me. I didn't have a response because he was right, but I also didn't need to justify myself anymore. Tyler continued, Did you move to Los Angeles? I answered without hesitation. Yeah, I'm here for work this time. His voice dropped noticeably. You never used to take business trips. You always said if you left there'd be no one to take care of me. You always put me first. I wanted to laugh. I also wanted to cry. A wave of emotions crashed over me and I told myself, Jessica, you spent years putting a selfish person first. Now it's time to put yourself first. I steadied my voice and said, Didn't you say that once we broke up we shouldn't contact each other anymore? Just following your words. Since we don't talk anymore, there's no reason for me to refuse work trips for you. You know I gave up so many opportunities for you over the years. He hesitated, his silence dragging on so long that I knew he had nothing real to say. So, after that painful stretch of nothingness, I hung up. It should have been heartbreaking. He knew I was leaving him behind, but he still couldn't find the words to stop me. But I had prepared for this moment, building walls over years of emotional exhaustion, and maybe my heart, scarred and worn down, had already gone completely numb. I wasn't sad anymore. I only felt free, and I hoped that this was the final goodbye. The day I finally signed the lease on my new place in Los Angeles, I invited my coworkers over for a small housewarming gathering. We walked out of the office together, chatting and laughing, when suddenly, someone standing outside caught my attention. One of my colleagues joked, "I don't think this building has ever seen someone this handsome before." I followed their gaze, and that's when I saw him. Tyler. It had been a month since I last saw him. Since we ended our long-distance relationship after college, we hadn't spent this much time apart. But now, standing in front of him, it didn't feel like a big deal anymore. Tyler walked toward me with purpose, his eyes fixed on mine. My coworkers exchanged glances, their curiosity palpable. One of them, sensing the tension, cleared their throat and said, "Looks like Jessica's busy tonight. Let's reschedule." For the first time, I realized that sometimes being too perceptive isn't always a good thing. Tyler didn't seem to mind, though. He took a moment to politely greet them, and once they were gone, he turned back to me. He stared at me for a long while before finally asking, "Jessica, why haven't you come back to me yet?" I felt completely drained. I had spent years pouring everything I had into this relationship, nurturing it, sustaining it, trying to keep it alive. Yet somehow, I had created a lover who was emotionally incapable of love. He had chased me across the country. He had shown up in front of me. He had every chance to apologize. But instead of asking for forgiveness, instead of making things right, he was standing here, demanding to know why I hadn't crawled back to him. "Why haven't you come back to me? Why do I have to be the one to come back? Why should we get back together at all? Does one apology in a relationship mean I have to keep apologizing forever? Hadn't I spent years loving fiercely, fighting hard, sacrificing everything? Also, could I have respect, love, and devotion in return?" I exhaled slowly and met his gaze. "Because I don't want to." In that moment, I realized something. I had won not just my self-respect, not just my dignity, but the version of myself I had lost over time. Tyler opened his mouth, but for a long while, nothing came out. Finally, he asked, "Why?" "Because I'm exhausted, Tyler. I never know when the next breakup is coming. I never know what meaningless reason it will be over next time. I feel so alone, like I've spent this entire relationship chasing after you, always trying to catch up, always running after something that was never truly mine. And somewhere along the way, I lost myself. Do you understand what I'm saying, Tyler? It wasn't until after we broke up that I realized just how full my life could be. I no longer had to be afraid of fights that could erupt at any moment. I no longer had to brace myself for another inevitable breakup. I no longer had to walk on eggshells, constantly worried about when the next storm would hit. For the first time, I was my own center of gravity. I was in control of everything, and it felt incredible. Tyler looked at me and asked, "You don't love me anymore?" He was taller than me, which always made direct eye contact a challenge, but this time, I barely had to tilt my chin upward to see the helplessness in his eyes. 10 years. It took 10 years for this proud man to finally lower his head to me, even if just a little. "I guess not anymore," I said it coldly. He took a step forward, reaching for my hand, but I instinctively stepped back. That small movement hurt him. For the first time, I saw raw sadness in his eyes. "You're avoiding me?" I let out a quiet laugh. "Do you remember how I used to beg you to take me back?" Tyler had always been arrogant. He had grown up being adored, never needing to lower himself for anyone. Even in our relationship, I was the one who pursued him first. Maybe from that moment on, our fate had already been scripted. He had dumped me so many times because of Brittany, his childhood friend, and every time I bent over backward to keep him. I even bought Brittany gifts just so she wouldn't hate me, just so Tyler wouldn't leave me over her. Now, looking back, I could barely stomach the memory. It was humiliating. I had no self-respect, no self-love. Hearing my words, Tyler froze. For a long time, he said nothing because he knew it. He knew that in this relationship, I had never been treated with dignity. "Tyler, before you ask someone else a question, ask yourself first. What do you mean before asking me if I ever loved you? Ask yourself, did you ever love me?" I left him standing there, and then I walked away. I didn't look back. Some things in life only feel truly liberating once you finally have the courage to do them, like realizing how good it felt to leave Tyler far behind. From that moment on, he was no longer an obstacle in my life. No matter where he appeared, he had no power over me anymore. For example, at the negotiation table for some reason, Tyler had suddenly become my client. Despite knowing nothing about renewable energy, he had used his money to invest in a mid-sized energy company and was now here sitting across from my client trying to make a deal. As the supplier, I was naturally included in the meeting to explain the technical details of the product. Tyler didn't seem too concerned about the service package we were offering, but he was very interested in the product itself, which meant I had to be at peak professionalism to handle his questions. By the time the meeting wrapped up, it was already 6 o'clock in the evening. Tyler stood up with a polite smile. "Thank you for your hard work today, everyone. Let's have dinner together at a nice restaurant." Before I could quietly slip away, my boss, Scott, immediately responded, "That sounds great. There's a highly rated restaurant just around the corner, my treat." I was about to make my escape when Scott suddenly glanced around and asked, "Where's Jessica? I just saw her here." I had no choice but to speak up. "I'm here." Scott turned to me with a pleased expression. "Jessica, you should join us. You did an incredible job today. The product demo and explanation were spot on." He then turned to introduce me to Tyler. When Jessica first joined, I was worried she might be too young and inexperienced, but after working with her, I realized she's one of the most capable people on our team. "Jessica, this is Tyler White. We'll be collaborating with him moving forward." Tyler extended his hand toward me. "Pleasure to meet you." I hadn't expected such an eventful dinner. Just as we arrived at the restaurant and were about to take our seats, we ran into someone familiar, Brittany. She walked up to Tyler with ease, her tone casual yet intimate. "Tyler, why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" There was so much to read between the lines, from her tone to the choice of words. It was clear that whatever was between them was not simple. Scott, always quick to assess a situation, immediately invited her. "Since you're a friend of Mr. White, why don't you join us for dinner?" Brittany smiled and nodded, then stepped forward and wrapped her arm around Tyler's. "Sure, thank you." A colleague standing next to me whispered, "Is she seriously trying to mark her territory? This is a business setting. How unprofessional." Tyler, however, didn't immediately follow Brittany inside. Instead, he glanced back at me. I ignored him and excused myself, heading to the restroom. By the time I returned, the food had already started arriving, and just as I walked in, I caught part of Brittany's conversation. "Oh, Tyler and I aren't like that. You guys are misunderstanding. He has a girlfriend." To my surprise, one of my colleagues casually added, "Then I feel bad for his girlfriend." Scott sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Why are you even here? You never come to these dinners." I turned to see the person who had spoken. It was the same cute coworker who had whispered to me earlier about Brittany. I hadn't expected her to be so blunt enough to make even the boss nervous. Without hesitation, she replied, "I'm here for the food. If we have to work through dinner, we might as well get a good meal out of it, right?" Scott sighed, trying to maintain composure, and made the introductions. "Mr. White, this is Olivia Chase, our product line's lead project manager." Brittany, with her sickly sweet yet condescending tone, said, "Wow, I didn't expect your lead project manager to be so young. Must be very talented." Scott simply closed his eyes, then shot Brittany a look of pure sympathy. It took me a moment to fully understand why Olivia finally spoke, her tone as sharp as a knife. "I look young because there's this thing called cosmetic procedures. You spend enough money and it makes you pretty. Unfortunately, it does nothing for intelligence. Otherwise, I'd recommend you try it." She casually took a sip of her drink before continuing. "But even if Botox can't fix your brain, there's something else that might help. It's called a mirror, or if that's too much effort, just pull out your phone, turn on the front camera, and take a good look at yourself. Because if you did, you'd realize you should have stayed home, since lack of intelligence is practically tattooed across your forehead." The room fell completely silent. I almost choked on my drink, but Olivia wasn't done. "If you were actually Mr. White's real girlfriend, at least I'd understand your delusional behavior, maybe even let it slide. But you're not. So what exactly are you showing off for?" She looked around at the table, then smirked. Let's see, other than Jessica and me, the rest of this table is full of men. So tell me, who exactly is bothering you? Then, with a raised eyebrow, she asked, and seriously, why are you even here? From the moment you walked in, I could tell you were unemployed. What kind of jobless freeloader just happens to show up at a business dinner, conveniently bumping into an old friend who invited you? With a final bite of food, she calmly wiped her mouth, then turned to Scott. Scott, that last question was the most important one. They leave the mess to you now, but I expect an answer. This could determine whether we reconsider partnerships with certain companies. With that, she grabbed her bag, took my hand, and said, All right, everyone, we're heading out. Enjoy your meal. She shot Scott a playful wink, then dragged me away at full speed. Olivia happened to live in the same neighborhood as me. It was close to our office, which was why so many of our colleagues rented places nearby. As we walked, I kept thinking about how to tell her the truth that Tyler was my ex. She had been so fiercely protective of me tonight, standing up to Brittany and even dragging me out of that awkward dinner. I couldn't keep lying to her. I was still trying to find the right words when she suddenly spoke from my right. Jessica, your ex-boyfriend is trash. I turned to her in shock. She took one look at my expression and burst out laughing, reaching over to pinch my cheek. Why are you so surprised? Didn't he stop you in front of the office the other day? I left 5 minutes after you and heard the whole thing. And today, come on, he was so obvious in the meeting, staring at you, asking you all those questions. You really thought Scott didn't notice? He called you over because your ex asked him to. Otherwise, Scott never would have insisted. Sometimes, with girls, once a conversation opens up, everything just flows. By the time we reached our neighborhood, we had talked about everything. And that's when I realized she was 4 years older than me. I never would have guessed. Her face was fresh and youthful, her skin flawless, her body proportionate and toned. Looking at her, I felt like I was seeing a version of life I'd never allowed myself to consider. The truth was, I had never struggled financially. I earned a good salary, but back then it was never just about me. I had to fit into Tyler's lifestyle. He came from money, and his standards were high. To be fair, he was generous with me too, but I wasn't the kind of person who liked to constantly take from others so to keep up with him. I bought things that weren't even part of my world. A 1-500 facial cleansing device, a 200 bottle of shampoo, a 100 normal-size cupcake. None of these were outrageously expensive on their own, but for someone like me, someone with a solid income but also a habit of saving it, was a financial burden. Little by little, it ate away at the small portion of my money that was supposed to be just for me. Olivia noticed my silence and immediately picked up on something. He asked bluntly, Do you still love him? I smiled and shook my head. I wouldn't dare. He shrugged, then, Don't, or love someone else, and if that doesn't work, try again. We kept talking as we walked, and by the time we reached our neighborhood, we realized we lived in adjacent buildings. As we parted ways, she waved at me. Let's work out together sometime. I'll introduce you to a good trainer. I looked into her genuine eyes and asked, How about tomorrow? She immediately grinned. Perfect! Wait for me after work. Back home, I opened my phone and saw that our colleagues were blowing up the group chat. Damn, Olivia never fails to deliver. First she put Scott in his place, now she's scolding clients too. Olivia replied casually, Tell him to fire me if he dares. Fire you? Are you kidding? The man is so terrified of upsetting you, he barely even comes into the office anymore. Olivia was the only one in our entire company who could handle the entire product pipeline from design to development to production. She was irreplaceable, and in business, being irreplaceable was the ultimate competitive advantage. It made me think, in her career, Olivia could be fearless because she had the skill and the results to back it up. But in my relationship with Tyler, I had made him irreplaceable, and because of that, he had felt entitled to hurt me. His leverage was my love, but what he never understood was that love without reciprocity cannot last forever. One day, it will fade, or worse, it will be replaced. Remember that, Tyler. Scott barely stayed mad for half a day before Olivia's new product line went live and completely won him over. He practically ran to her office beaming. My dear Olivia, when do you think we'll be done with testing today? Olivia, in a voice loud enough for the whole office to hear, said, right after we finish afternoon tea. Scott got the hint immediately understood. Afternoon tea is on me! Meanwhile, Tyler's partnership with the company continued. He seemed particularly interested in Olivia's new product line, showing up twice to observe. Scott paired me up with Olivia to present the product to him. Olivia rolled her eyes but said nothing. That evening, after the workday ended, Tyler asked me out to dinner. Can I take you to dinner, Jessica? Honestly, I had no interest in entertaining him, but I remembered what Olivia had told me. Toxic relationships should be cut off quickly, like a clean wound. I was glad I had taken her advice because that night I finally heard Tyler say something I never thought I'd hear, an apology. Sitting across from me, his eyes red, he whispered, I'm sorry, Jessica. I hurt you. Can you forgive me? I swear I'll never suggest breaking up again. If you agree to marry me, we can get married immediately. Who would have thought that the marriage proposal I had begged for, dreamed of, cried over for 10 years was finally here? And yet all I could think was how ridiculous it was. A year ago, even just a few months ago, I would have been ecstatic. But now it seemed absurd. This time, I asked him the question, why do you want to marry me, Tyler? His answer came immediately. Because I love you, Jessica. I can't live without you. The time we've been apart made me realize that you were like air to me. I never noticed it before, but the moment I lost you, I couldn't breathe. What a grand and noble declaration. If only I could feel his sincerity. But isn't love something that should be felt, not just spoken? Otherwise, wouldn't every hollow confession ring true? I looked at him, his eyes filled with nothing but me. Tyler, do you know what you taught me? He stared, waiting. I smiled. You taught me that no matter who you lose, you can still live just fine. I picked up my phone, slipped it into my pocket, and stood up. Still smiling, I said, I'm giving you this lesson today. You can take your time learning it, starting with this dinner all by yourself. I turned and walked away. This time, I didn't glance back, not in the mirror by the door, not in the brief moment before turning away. I didn't care what his reaction was. For the first time, I was free. And it had only taken me 6 months to be reborn. All wounds heal with time. They scab over, and then one day they become nothing more than a faint mark on your skin, a reminder of what was but no longer hurts. 2 years later, the product line Olivia and I developed was finally profitable. Every minute, new earnings were being logged. Between meetings, Olivia leaned over and asked, Coffee this afternoon? There's a place with an amazing cappuccino. I glanced at my unfinished work and smiled. Oh, pass. She wasn't giving up that easily. Fine, but you are coming to meet the guy I set you up with, right? I raised an eyebrow. Wait, this is about a date? She grinned. Of course. He's a friend of mine, super cute, 1 year younger than you. I opened my mouth to refuse, but before I could, she narrowed her eyes. You're not actually thinking about getting back with Tyler, are you? Olivia had never hidden her disdain for Tyler, even after all these years, even after our successful partnership. She still worried that I might fall back into my old ways. I laughed, shaking my head. Fine, go ahead. I like cute guys. He sounds promising. Turns out, he really was cute, not just good-looking, but full of life, effortlessly charming. Even Tyler would have felt inferior standing next to him. One evening, he was dropping me off at the office when we ran straight into Tyler. Tyler froze, then disappeared for 3 days. Olivia smirked. He's home nursing his wounds. Good. Let him, after all. I healed mine on my own, and I had better things to do, like go on my next date. What do you do when you finally realize that all the love you've given, all the sacrifices you've made, were never really reciprocated? Do you keep giving, hoping for change, or do you finally choose yourself? For years, Jessica had poured everything into her relationship with Tyler, constantly begging for his affection, chasing after a love that was one-sided. But after their latest breakup, something shifted. She began to realize that her life was so much more than just trying to make Tyler happy. The desserts she enjoyed on her own, the business trip to Los Angeles, and the quiet moments of self-reflection all helped her see that she didn't need Tyler to define her. When Tyler finally called, expecting Jessica to apologize, she surprised herself by not immediately giving in. Instead of going back into her old pattern of begging, she stood her ground, decided to focus on her career, and moved forward with her life. And when Tyler showed up asking her to come back, Jessica realized that this time she didn't need to go back to the person who had always held her back. She had learned to live without him. So, what do you think? Was Jessica right to let go and move on, or do you think she should have given Tyler another chance? Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship for your own well-being? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
I thought you were cleverer, Eva, marrying Michael. Guess you're just another gullible woman. I tightened my grip on the checkbook. What do you mean, Ava? Aaron took a step closer, an icy smirk on his face. Enough! Hand over the checkbook now, or we finalize the divorce. You have no idea what you're starting here. I spat back, feeling my pulse quicken. With a dismissive chuckle, he shrugged. We'll see about that. 5 years. That's how long it's been since Michael's accident. Aaron, Michael's best friend, was there from the start, supporting me through the grief. A year after Michael died, I remarried. Aaron seemed like a lifesaver, stepping in just when I needed someone. I convinced myself that he loved me. But now, with his demanding eyes locked on the checkbook, I saw it all clearly. The subtle lies, the mounting demands. Aaron was never in this for love. He wanted control, and I had let him weave his web around me. I handed over the checkbook slowly, watching Aaron's triumphant smile. Inside, I was boiling over, but outside I maintained my calm. Aaron flipped through, checking the entries. Good. Now let's talk about the account changes I've been considering for us. There it was again, that word us, but every time he said it, I felt more like a pawn than a partner. I didn't respond immediately, letting the tension linger. Michael would have been smarter about this, he added, his eyes not meeting mine. Those words hit like a punch to the stomach. Michael, always the comparison. Taking a deep breath, I willed my voice to stay steady. What exactly did you have in mind, Aaron? Just some reallocations, some investments. You'll be fine with it, he said, pocketing the checkbook. Investments. Right, for his mother's medical bills are more likely to continue his string of lavish purchases. What had happened to the man I thought I knew? Aaron, we need to talk. Seriously. I was losing my patience. This isn't working. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, it's working just fine for me. I couldn't hold back any longer. No, it's not, Aaron. You spend money like water. You're never home, and when you are, you're unbearable. This isn't a marriage. It's a transaction. You're draining me dry. Aaron's face twisted, his charming facade shattered. You think you can threaten me? You don't want this getting uglier than it already is. I took a step back, stunned by the venom in his voice. Are you threatening me? Just giving you a reality check, he said, voice low and menacing. Hand over the life insurance money, get ready for a nasty fight. It was in that moment I understood the full depth of his deceit. No more pretending, no more lies. With every word he spoke, he made my resolve stronger. I would outsmart him. Aaron didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. I'd do whatever it took to secure my life from him. He might think he's in control, but that was about to change. The first few months with Aaron were like a dream. We redecorated the house together, planned weekend getaways, and cooked dinner side by side. I began to believe that love had found me again. But gradually things shifted. Aaron started coming home late. At first he had excuses about meetings running over and work piling up. Then the reasons became vaguer. I stayed up waiting, but the silence was the loudest answer I got. One evening I confronted him as he walked in after midnight. Aaron, we need to talk. What's going on? Why are you always late? He shrugged, a hint of annoyance in his eyes. I've told you, Eva, work has been busy. Every night? Yes, every night. His voice rose, and for a moment I saw a stranger standing there. Why can't you understand? I'm doing this for us. I wanted to believe him, but his words felt hollow. The tension over money began soon after. Aaron demanded more allowance, explaining it was for his sick mother. I agreed without questioning, until I noticed the credit card statements. Expensive dinners, nightclubs, casinos. He wasn't helping his mother. He was enjoying himself. Aaron, I said, showing him the bills one morning. These charges don't seem right. We can't afford this lifestyle. He snatched the papers from my hand. I know what I'm doing, Eva. Mind your own business. But this is our money, I protested. We need to be responsible. Responsible, tearing the papers in half. You think you can lecture me about responsibility? You were the one sobbing over Michael's death. I'm the one keeping this house together. I bit my lip, anger welling up. Since when is wasting money responsible? Aaron's face darkened. You don't get it, do you? I'm done explaining myself. His attitude grew colder, his absences longer. The man I thought cared about me was fading, replaced by someone I barely knew. One night I returned home to find the living room lights dimmed. Aaron was at my laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. What are you doing? I demanded. Just managing our finances, he replied, not looking up. On my private account? I stepped closer, fury boiling over. Get out of there, now! He finally turned to face me, eyes narrowing. You think you're smart hiding money from me? Well, think again. I have every right to be here. You have no right to access my private accounts. We're married, Eva. Everything you have is mine, too. No, Aaron, that's not how it works. You're crossing a line. Give me the life insurance money from Michael's passing, or it's over. Your choice. His words were a slap in the face. I knew I couldn't trust him. That night, as Aaron slept soundly, I lay awake, plotting my next move. I'd protect myself and my future. There was no running from this now. I would outsmart him, and he wouldn't see it coming. I started working part-time at a local bookstore. It wasn't much, but every dollar mattered now. Aaron had drained our accounts to the point we were barely making ends meet. He spent more time out than in, and I knew I needed a backup plan. When Aaron wasn't home, my mind raced. I stashed bits of my earnings into a secret bank account he didn't know about. It was risky, but it gave me some control, a small fragment of hope. One evening, I got home from work, tired but satisfied. As I entered the house, I noticed the eerie silence. Aaron's car was in the driveway, yet the house felt empty. I went straight to my desk and gasped. Aaron was there, logged into my bank account. What are you doing? I asked, my heart hammering in my chest. He didn't even flinch. I'm managing our money. You're reckless, Eva. You need guidance. You can't just take control of my account. I moved closer, trying to pull the laptop away. Your account? He sneered, gripping the sides of the laptop. We're married. What's yours is mine. I yanked the laptop out of his hands. Enough, Aaron. You're not getting your hands on this money. It was Michael's insurance payout, for God's sake. Michael's dead, he spat back, venom in his voice. And if you don't watch it, you'll regret it. Divorce, Eva. Think about it. I have thought about it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And maybe that's exactly what I want. Aaron laughed, stepping back. Go ahead, Eva, but remember, I'll take every last cent. You think the courts will side with you? You're nothing without me. Shaken, I watched as he stormed out. My heart ached with a mixture of fear and anger. That night, I made a decision. Aaron wouldn't get another cent from me. I had to protect myself, and I had to do it now. The next morning, I visited the bank. I need to change my account details, I told the teller, hands trembling, new passwords, everything. The teller nodded, helping me secure my money. Leaving the bank, I felt a surge of resolve. When I got home, Aaron was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, noticing the determination in my eyes. What are you up to now, Eva? Just making sure you don't steal any more from me, he smirked. Good luck with that. You can't outsmart me. But I knew I could. I pretended to comply with his wishes, all while closing the gaps. I packed a bag with essentials and a few precious memories of Michael. Then I called Jessie, my trusted friend. I need a place to stay, Jess, I said, desperation in my voice. Come over, Eva. We'll figure this out together. Leaving Aaron behind, I drove to Jessie's house, the weight of uncertainty lifting with every mile. This was only the beginning. I was ready to fight back, and Aaron was about to learn just how strong I could be. At Jessie's house, I finally felt a sense of safety. Jessie welcomed me with open arms. Stay as long as you need, Eva. You know I've got your back. Thanks, Jess, I said, setting my bag down. I don't know what I'd do without you. We'll get through this, she assured me, patting my shoulder. Let's get you settled. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I need to contact my lawyer, I told Jessie over breakfast. Good idea. Cover all your bases. She nodded. And what about Aaron? I sighed. He's not backing down. I need to be careful. Jessie handed me her phone. Call your lawyer now. The sooner you start the process, the better. I dialed the number and explained my situation. I need to initiate divorce proceedings, and I need to protect my assets. Understood, my lawyer said. We'll start the paperwork. Make sure Aaron has no access to your accounts. Already done, I replied, feeling a bit more secure. And I'll need to notify the authorities. Aaron's threats are escalating. Keep records of everything he says or does, the lawyer advised. It'll help your case. After ending the call, I felt a sense of purpose. Jessie and I put together all the documentation, organized my finances, and ensured that Aaron couldn't touch a dime. As the days went by, Aaron became more desperate. He called repeatedly, leaving angry voicemails. Eva, you can't run forever. Come back now, or you'll regret it. I saved every message, each one a piece of evidence. One evening, I received an email notification. Aaron had attempted to access our joint account, but was denied. His frustration was palpable even through the screen. What's the next step? Jessie asked, seeing the look on my face. Divorce papers, I said firmly. He needs to know I'm serious. Sending those papers felt like lifting a weight off my shoulders. I knew Aaron would be furious, but it was a necessary step. A few days later, Jessie and I were sitting together when my phone buzzed. It was Aaron. I answered, putting it on speaker. You think you're smart, don't you? Sending those papers? He was livid. I'm protecting myself, Aaron, I replied calmly. This is over. No, it's not, he snapped. You'll pay for this, I swear. We'll see, I said and hung up. Jessie looked at me, concerned. He'll get desperate now, Eva. Be prepared. I am, I assured her. I have to be. A sense of calm settled over me. I was taking control, no longer a victim to Aaron's games. Each step I took solidified my resolve. With Jessie's support, I began the process of revoking Aaron's access to everything connected to me. I changed locks, updated passwords, and informed everyone involved about the situation. Aaron's courage crumbled slowly but surely. He found himself cut off, no longer able to manipulate or control me. I watched from a distance as his fake facade started to fall apart, revealing the true coward behind the mask. I knew the ultimate face-off was coming, but until then, I kept my defenses strong, prepared for whatever Aaron had left in his arsenal. This was only the beginning, and I was ready for the fight. Aaron's arrogance boiled over when he realized I had sealed off all his access to the finances. One evening, as Jessie and I were catching up on the latest details, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? I answered tentatively. You think you've won, Eva? Aaron's voice was seething with anger. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. That's your opinion, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you want, Aaron? I want what's mine, and you will give it to me, he hissed. You're not getting anything, Aaron. It's over. I hung up, feeling a mixture of fear and strength. Jessie looked at me, concern in her eyes. He's not going to give up easily, Eva. Be careful. I know, I sighed, but I'm ready. The next day, I decided to take more decisive action. I went to the local police station to explain my situation. Officer James listened carefully, taking notes. Based on what you've told me, we can file a restraining order against him, he said, handing me the paperwork. It won't stop his calls, but it might make him think twice before showing up. Thank you, I said, filling out the forms. This means a lot. Returning to Jessie's place, I felt a little more secure. That evening, Jessie and I were having dinner when there was a loud knock at the door. Jessie peeked through the window and turned pale. It's Aaron and his mother, Lydia. Open up, Eva. Aaron shouted from outside. We need to talk. I stood my ground. Go away, Aaron. You have no right to be here. Lydia's voice cut through the air. You'll regret this, Eva. We've done nothing wrong. You've done plenty wrong, I snapped back. Leave or I'll call the police. Aaron pounded on the door harder. You can't hide forever. With shaky hands, I dialed 911. There's a man at my door threatening me. I have a restraining order against him. We're on our way, the dispatcher assured me. I hung up and glared at the door. You're making this worse for yourself, Aaron. Minutes later, the police arrived. Officers led a furious Aaron and a downcast Lydia away. Aaron's final words, "This isn't over," echoed as they drove off. Jessie hugged me tightly. You did the right thing, Eva. Stay strong. The next morning, I sent the divorce papers through certified mail, ensuring Aaron's access to everything connected to me was revoked. I needed to make sure he understood there was no way back. Later that week, Lydia's car was gone from Aaron's driveway. Word had spread quickly about their confrontation with the police. Jesse and I sat in the living room, a sense of relief washing over me. "It's not going to be easy, but I think we've turned a corner," I said. "You've got this, Eva," Jesse reassured me. "You're stronger than you know." I nodded, the weight of uncertainty lifting. The storm was far from over, but for the first time in a long while I felt ready to face it head-on. Every step forward was a step away from Aaron's toxic grip. The ultimate showdown was on the horizon, and I was prepared to win. A few days after the police escorted Aaron and Lydia away, I returned to work at the bookstore, hoping for a sense of normalcy. It was a quiet afternoon when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jesse. "Aaron and Lydia here now. Be careful." My heart pounded. Moments later, the bell above the shop's door jingled, and they stormed in. Aaron's eyes were cold, and Lydia's face was twisted with anger. "You can't run, Eva," Aaron said, striding towards the counter. "You think you can just cut me off and hide?" I stood my ground. "This is not your place, Aaron. Leave, or I'll call the police again." Lydia slammed her hand on the counter. "You're making a mistake. You think you're so clever, but you'll lose everything." I clenched my fists. "Get out, now." "We had a deal, Eva," Aaron sneered, leaning closer. "You agreed to share everything, but you've gone behind my back." "No, Aaron, you broke our trust," I shot back. "You lied and manipulated me. Now you're facing the consequences." "Consequences?" Lydia spat. "You'll regret dragging my family through the mud. You have no proof of anything." I looked her in the eye. "I have more than enough proof. You impersonated me at the bank, committed fraud. You and Aaron will pay for this." Aaron's face twisted with rage. "You don't scare us, Eva. We can ruin you." I held up my phone, recording their every word. "Say all you want, but this is going to the authorities. You'll pay for everything you've done." The door pushed open, and my boss, Mr. Reed, stepped in. He took one look at the scene and approached. "Is there a problem here?" "These people were just leaving," I said firmly, glaring at Aaron and Lydia. Aaron let out a bitter laugh. "You haven't heard the last of this," Lydia added. "You made the wrong enemies, Eva." Mr. Reed folded his arms, towering over them. "You heard her. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." Aaron and Lydia stormed out, muttering curses under their breath. I sagged against the counter, relief flooding through me. "You okay?" Mr. Reed asked, concern in his eyes. "Thank you," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'm fine. Just some unresolved issues." He nodded. "If they come back, don't hesitate to call for help." I watched as Aaron and Lydia sped away, their threats ringing in my ears. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Their desperation was clear. It only made me stronger. That evening, I met with my lawyer and handed over the latest evidence. They showed up at my workplace, made threats. I recorded it all, I explained. He nodded, a grim smile on his face. "This strengthens our case. We'll bring everything to light in court." Leaving his office, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I was ready for the next step. Aaron and Lydia had tried to intimidate me, but they were the ones who would pay dearly. As I drove back to Jesse's, my phone rang. It was her. "Everything okay, Eva?" "Yeah, everything's fine. Just had a run-in with Aaron and Lydia at work, but we're moving forward." "Good," Jesse said. "Stay strong. You're almost there." "I will," I promised, feeling the weight of her support. The ultimate showdown loomed on the horizon, and I knew I wouldn't face it alone. The fight for justice and peace had only just begun, but I was more than ready to see it through. The courtroom was packed. Aaron and Lydia sat across from me, their eyes burning with indignation. This was it, the moment of truth. My lawyer, Mr. Carter, stood and presented our case. "Your Honor, we have clear evidence of fraud and deceit committed by Aaron and Lydia against my client, Eva. They have manipulated finances, attempted illegal access to accounts, and made explicit threats." Aaron's lawyer tried to defend him. "Your Honor, these accusations are exaggerated. Aaron was just managing shared finances, and any accusations of fraud are unfounded." "Unfounded?" Mr. Carter countered, handing over the recording. "This recording, taken by Eva, explicitly captures Aaron and Lydia's threats and admissions of their actions." The judge leaned forward, listening intently. Aaron's face fell as his own voice echoed through the courtroom, spouting hate and threats. Lydia's expression turned cold, realization dawning on her. Enough, the judge said, raising a hand. Turning to Aaron and Lydia, he continued, I have heard enough to make my decision. Aaron looked panicked. Your Honor, I was under a lot of stress. I didn't mean those things. It's too late for excuses, the judge replied sternly. The evidence is clear. You have committed fraud and shown a clear pattern of manipulation and abuse. Lydia stood up, desperation in her eyes. Please, Your Honor, we didn't mean any harm. Sit down, the judge commanded, and Lydia obeyed, her face ashen. The judge's gavel came down with a sense of finality. Aaron and Lydia are to repay the misappropriated funds and will face legal consequences for their fraudulent actions. I breathed a sigh of relief. It was over. Justice had been served. Aaron's face crumbled, tears of anger and disbelief streaming down his cheeks. Lydia looked defeated, her plans falling apart before her eyes. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Carter gave me a reassuring smile. You did well, Eva. This is a significant victory. Thank you, I said, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. Now you need to focus on rebuilding your life, Mr. Carter advised. You've shown incredible strength. Walking away from the courthouse, I saw Aaron being led away, handcuffed. He caught my eye, his rage clear. You haven't seen the last of me, he growled. I didn't reply, just kept walking. His power over me was gone. That evening, Jessie and I celebrated quietly. To new beginnings, she toasted. To freedom, I echoed, clinking glasses. Aaron's downfall was public and complete. He lost his job, his reputation, and now faced a significant financial penalty. Lydia withdrew into isolation, her social standing tarnished beyond repair. My life was far from perfect, but I felt hopeful for the first time in years. The storm had passed, leaving behind the wreckage of Aaron's deceit. I was ready to rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. As I went to bed that night, I couldn't help but smile. The fight was over, the battle won. And while Aaron and Lydia faced the consequences of their actions, I had reclaimed my life. The scars would heal, and with each passing day, I would find peace and strength anew. The weeks after the court ruling were a whirlwind. Life slowly started to piece itself back together. I stabilized my job at the bookstore, dived into work, and found solace in the daily routine. Jessie remained my rock, always there with a reassuring word or a comforting hug. One afternoon, while shelving some books, a soft-spoken voice interrupted my thoughts. Excuse me, could you help me find The Great Gatsby? I turned to see a tall man with gentle eyes and a warm smile. Sure, it's just over here, I said, leading him to the classics section. Thank you, he said, looking thoughtfully at the books. I'm Patrick, by the way. Eva, I replied, shaking his hand. Do you need help with anything else? Patrick smiled. Just looking for something good to read. Any recommendations? We spent the next few minutes talking about books. There was something calming about him, an air of genuine kindness I hadn't experienced in a long time. Over the coming weeks, Patrick became a regular customer, and then a friend. One evening, as I closed the store, Patrick waited outside. Care for a coffee? He asked, a hopeful expression on his face. Sure. I nodded, feeling a nervous excitement. At the cafe, the conversation flowed easily. Patrick shared his love for literature, his adventures as a travel writer. I listened, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Eva, you're amazing, Patrick said, his eyes sincere. You've been through so much, yet here you are, standing strong. I smiled, blushing slightly. It hasn't been easy, but I've had good friends to help me. He reached across the table, gently squeezing my hand. I'd like to be one of those friends, if you'll let me. We continued to see each other, slowly building a bond. Patrick was careful, gentle, never pushing, always respectful. It was refreshing, a stark contrast to the chaos Aaron had brought into my life. One afternoon, while sorting through some old photos, I found a picture of Michael. Tears welled up in my eyes. Jessie, noticing my distress, sat beside me. It's okay to remember, Eva, she said softly. It's part of healing. Michael was my safe place, I whispered. I miss him every day, and it's okay to miss him, Jessie said, but you deserve happiness too. It was as if a weight had lifted. The memories of Michael would always be a part of me, but they didn't have to anchor me to the past. They could live alongside new memories, new happiness. Months went by, and Patrick stayed by my side. One day, as we walked through the park, he stopped and looked at me. Eva, I care deeply for you. Will you let me be a part of your life? It was a big step, but I felt ready. Yes, Patrick, I'd like that. In that moment, I realized I had regained control of my life. Aaron's shadow no longer loomed over me. He faced the consequences of his actions, a stark contrast to the bright, hopeful future I was beginning to see. Patrick and I took things slow, building a relationship based on trust and care. I was mindful, ensuring not to repeat past mistakes. Each day felt like a new chapter, filled with cautious optimism and growing confidence. Eva's journey felt complete. From the darkness brought by Aaron, I had emerged stronger, resilient. With Patrick by my side, and Jesse always there to support me, I felt a sense of peace and hope. The storm had passed, and the future looked bright. In the end, it was not just about the revenge or the drama. It was about reclaiming my life, learning to trust again, and finding a balanced new beginning. And in that, I found my true strength. I sat across from Mark at our dining table, the evening light filtering through the windows, casting a warm glow over our cozy home. Everything seemed perfect, until he dropped those fateful words that shattered my world. "There's something you need to know, Emily." His voice trembled, and he couldn't meet my gaze. A knot formed in my stomach as I lowered my magazine. "What is it, Mark?" He took a deep breath, his eyes downcast. "We need to get a divorce." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the air from my lungs. "What? Why?" Mark's shoulders slumped, and he finally looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and resolve. "I've been in love with someone else for years. Her name is Heather, and she's pregnant with my child." Time seemed to freeze as his confession sank in. The man I had loved, trusted, and built a life with had been lying to me all this time. Tears stung my eyes, and a lump formed in my throat, making it hard to breathe. "How could you do this to me?" I choked out, my voice cracking with emotion. "To our marriage?" Mark's expression softened, but it did little to ease the ache in my chest. "I'm sorry, Emily. I never meant to hurt you, but I can't keep living a lie. I love Heather, and I want to be with her and our child." Anger flared within me, burning away the initial shock and hurt. "So what? Our 5 years together meant nothing to you?" He shook his head, his brow furrowed. "Of course they did, but sometimes love fades and people grow apart." I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the torrent of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back?" Mark's gaze dropped once more, and he fidgeted in his chair. "A few years," he mumbled. My heart shattered into a million pieces. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a fraud, a snake who had betrayed my trust in the cruelest way possible. In that moment, something hardened within me. I would not be a victim. I would not let this break me. Mark had made his choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. "Get out," I said, my voice low and steady. "Pack your things and get out of my house." Mark's eyes widened, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded and stood from the table, leaving me alone with the wreckage of our once happy life. As I sat there, tears streaming down my face, I made a vow to myself. Mark would pay for what he had done. I would make sure of it. The next day at work, I felt like a zombie, barely able to focus on the tasks at hand. The weight of Mark's betrayal hung heavy on my shoulders, and I knew I needed to confide in someone I could trust. During our lunch break, I caught up with my friend and colleague, Laura, in the cafeteria. As we settled at a table, she immediately noticed the dark circles under my eyes and my somber demeanor. "Emily, what's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Mark wants a divorce." Laura's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? Why?" The words tumbled out like opening a floodgate of pent-up emotion. "He's been cheating on me for years with some woman named Heather, and she's pregnant with his child." Laura's hand flew to her mouth, her expression a mix of shock and anger. "That bastard," she hissed. "I'm so sorry, Emily. You don't deserve this." I nodded, blinking back tears. "I know. And the worst part is, he acted like it was nothing, like our 5 years of marriage meant nothing to him." Laura reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's because he's a selfish prick who only cares about himself." Her words rang true, and I felt a surge of anger coursing through me. "You're right. He is selfish, and he's going to pay for what he's done." Laura leaned back in her chair, studying me carefully. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I'm not going to let him get away with this. He thinks he can just toss me aside and start a new life with his mistress? Not a chance. Laura's eyes narrowed. What are you going to do? First, I'm going to hire a private investigator, I said, my voice steady and determined. I need to know exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. If Mark has been cheating for years, there's no telling what else he's been hiding from me. Laura nodded slowly, a sly smile spreading across her lips. Good idea. We need to gather as much dirt on him as possible. Exactly, I said, feeling a sense of purpose settle over me. And then we'll use it to make sure I get everything I deserve in the divorce. Laura's smile turned feral. That's my girl. We'll make sure that bastard pays for what he's done. As we finished our lunch, I felt a newfound resolve coursing through my veins. Mark had made a mistake, thinking he could walk all over me and discard our marriage like it meant nothing. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Later that day, as I sat at my desk, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I felt a cold sweat prickling at the back of my neck. Pushing through the discomfort, I made a mental note to schedule a doctor's appointment, just to be on the safe side. Little did I know, the real bombshell was yet to come. A few days later, I found myself sitting in the doctor's office, nervously tapping my foot as I waited for the results. The nausea and fatigue had only gotten worse, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When the doctor finally called me back, her expression was unreadable. Well, Miss Anderson, the tests confirm that you're pregnant. The words hit me like a ton of bricks, and I felt the blood drain from my face. Pregnant? With Mark's child? The cruel irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Are you sure? I managed to choke out, my mouth suddenly dry. The doctor nodded, a hint of sympathy in her eyes. Yes, I'm afraid there's no doubt about it. Congratulations are in order, I suppose. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Congratulations! My husband just left me for another woman who's also pregnant with his child. This is the last thing I expected. The doctor's expression softened. I understand this must be a difficult situation, but try to focus on the positives. You're bringing a new life into the world, and that's something to be celebrated. I nodded numbly, my mind racing with a million thoughts and emotions. On the one hand, the idea of having a child filled me with joy and hope for the future. But on the other hand, the fact that it was Mark's child, conceived during a time when he was betraying me with another woman, left a bitter taste in my mouth. As I left the doctor's office, I felt torn in two. Part of me wanted to embrace this new chapter, to focus on the love and nurturing that comes with motherhood. But another part of me couldn't shake the anger and resentment towards Mark, the man who had so callously thrown our marriage away. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water and sank onto the couch, my hand instinctively resting on my still flat stomach. A million questions raced through my mind. How would I tell Mark? Would he even care? Would he try to use this as leverage against me in the divorce? As the hours ticked by, I came to a decision. I would tell Mark about the pregnancy, but not because I expected him to change his mind or come back to me. No, I would tell him because he deserved to know the full extent of the consequences of his actions. The next day, I steeled my nerves and called Mark, asking him to come over so we could talk. When he arrived, he looked uncomfortable, like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze with a steely resolve. "I'm pregnant, Mark, with your child." His eyes widened and his mouth hung open in shock. "What? How?" I couldn't help but scoff at his incredulity. "How do you think, Mark? We were still together when this happened, remember?" He ran a hand through his hair, his expression a mix of confusion and guilt. "But I thought, with Heather." I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Save it, Mark. I don't need your excuses or your pity. I'm telling you this not because I expect anything from you, but because you need to understand the gravity of what you've done." His shoulders slumped, and he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Emily. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Well, it did," I said, my voice hard as steel. "And now you're going to have to live with the consequences, just like me." As he left, I felt a strange sense of empowerment wash over me. In that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, I would be okay. I had the strength and determination to get through this, with or without Mark by my side. And if he thought he could just waltz back into my life and play the doting father, he had another thing coming. A few days after breaking the news of my pregnancy to Mark, I found myself pacing the living room floor, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of me still clung to the hope that this child might be the wake-up call he needed, that he would come to his senses and realize the mistake he was making. The sound of the doorbell pulled me from my thoughts, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. When I opened the door, Mark stood on the other side, his expression a mix of guilt and determination. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, brushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. I crossed my arms over my chest, watching him warily. "About what?" He turned to face me, his eyes pleading. "About the baby. About us," I scoffed, shaking my head. "There is no us anymore, Mark. Aita, you made that clear when you decided to throw away our marriage for some fling." His face fell, and he ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Heather is not just some fling, Emily. I love her, and I want to be with her and our child." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "And what about my child, Mark? The one growing inside me right now? Are you just going to abandon us too?" He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Of course not, Emily. I want to be a part of this child's life too." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, how generous of you. You want to be a part-time father to my child while you play house with your mistress and her baby." Mark's expression hardened. "That's not fair, Emily. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Well, it did happen," I shot back, my voice rising. "And now you have to face the consequences of your actions." He took a step closer, his eyes pleading. "Please, Emily, let's not do this. Let's try to work things out for the sake of our child." I shook my head, feeling a surge of resolve coursing through me. "No, Mark, you made your choice, and now you have to live with it. I'm not going to let you waltz back into my life and play the doting father whenever it's convenient for you." His shoulders slumped, and I could see the defeat in his eyes. "Emily, please, get out," I said, my voice low and steady. "Get out of my house, and don't come back unless it's to discuss the divorce proceedings." He opened his mouth as if to argue, but one look at the determination on my face must have convinced him it was futile. With a heavy sigh, he turned and walked out the door, leaving me alone with the weight of my decision. As the days passed, I found myself hardening my resolve further. Mark had made his bed, and now he would have to lie in it. I wouldn't allow him to string me along or use the pregnancy as leverage in the divorce. No, I would take control of the situation and ensure that I got everything I deserved, both for myself and for my child. With Laura's help, I started gathering evidence of Mark's infidelity, documenting every lie, every betrayal, and every instance of his deceit. I would make sure that when the divorce proceedings began, I had an ironclad case against him, ensuring that he wouldn't be able to weasel his way out of taking responsibility for his actions. As I sat in my home office, sifting through the mounting evidence, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. Mark had thought he could walk all over me, discard me like a used rag, and move on to greener pastures. But he had underestimated my strength, my resilience, and my determination to see justice done. I would make sure that he paid for what he had done in every possible way. And in the end, I would be the one standing tall, with a secure future for myself and my child, while he was left to wallow in the ruins of his own making. With the evidence of Mark's infidelity mounting, I knew it was time to take the next step in my plan for revenge. I called Laura over to my home office, and we pored over the documents and recordings I had gathered, plotting our next move. "This is good, Emily," Laura said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Really good. With all of this, you'll have a solid case in the divorce proceedings." I nodded, a grim smile tugging at my lips. "That's the plan. Mark thinks he can just toss me aside and start a new life with his mistress. He's got another thing coming." Laura leaned back in her chair, studying me carefully. "Are you sure you want to go through with this, though? Divorces can get really messy, especially when there's a kid involved." I met her gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I'm sure. Mark made his choice, and now he has to face the consequences." I'm not going to let him waltz back into my life and play the doting father whenever it's convenient for him. Laura nodded slowly, a sly smile spreading across her face. All right then, let's make sure he pays for what he's done. With Laura's support and the mounting evidence against Mark, I felt a surge of confidence coursing through me. But I knew that in order to truly secure my future and that of my unborn child, I would need more help. The kind of help that only someone with real power and influence could provide. That's when I decided to reach out to my father, Robert, the CEO of a major corporation. I hadn't spoken to him much since the news of my pregnancy and impending divorce, but I knew he would want to be involved, especially when it came to protecting his grandchild's future. When I called him and explained the situation, he was initially hesitant, urging me to take the high road and avoid any messy legal battles. But as I laid out the evidence against Mark and my plan for revenge, I could sense his resolve wavering. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. "Once you set this in motion, there's no going back." I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "I'm sure, Dad. Mark betrayed me in the worst way possible, and he has to face the consequences. I won't let him get away with this, if not when my child's future is at stake." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then finally he spoke. "All right, sweetheart. If this is what you really want, you have my full support. Just say the word, and I'll make sure you have the best lawyers and resources at your disposal." Relief washed over me, knowing that I had my father's backing. With his influence and resources, Mark didn't stand a chance. He had made the mistake of underestimating me, and now he would pay the price for his arrogance. Over the next few weeks, I worked closely with my father and the legal team he assembled, building an airtight case against Mark. Every lie, every betrayal, every instance of his deceit was carefully documented and cataloged, creating a mountain of evidence that would be impossible for him to refute. As the legal proceedings began, I could see the panic in Mark's eyes as he realized just how much trouble he was in. His lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement, but I was resolute. I wanted everything, and I wouldn't rest until I got it. Throughout the process, Mark tried to plead with me, to appeal to my sense of compassion and the love we once shared. But every time I looked at him, all I saw was the man who had shattered my trust and thrown away our marriage like it was nothing. And so I pressed on, my determination fueled by the burning desire for justice and the knowledge that I was doing this for the sake of my child, to ensure that they would never have to suffer the same kind of betrayal and heartbreak that I had endured. The day of the divorce proceedings, I strode into the lawyer's office with my head held high, my father and Laura by my side. Mark and his attorney were already there, and the tension in the room was palpable. As we took our seats, Mark leaned over and tried to catch my eye. "Emily, please, can we talk about this? I don't want it to come to this." I met his gaze, my expression cold and detached. "There's nothing to talk about, Mark. You made your choice, and now it's time to face the consequences." He opened his mouth to respond, but his lawyer placed a hand on his arm, silencing him. The proceedings began, and for the next several hours, we systematically laid out the evidence of Mark's infidelity and betrayal. With each piece of damning evidence presented, I could see the color draining from Mark's face. His lawyer tried to object and deflect, but the mountain of proof was undeniable. Recordings of Mark's secret liaisons, bank statements showing unexplained expenditures, and even private investigator reports detailing his sordid affairs, it was all there laid bare for the world to see. As the hours ticked by, Mark's composure began to crumble. He shifted in his seat, his eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. At one point he turned to me, tears in his eyes, and mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." But it was too little, too late. I simply stared back at him, my expression unwavering, resolute in my determination to see justice served. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat and delivered the verdict. Mark would be required to pay a substantial settlement, covering child support for our unborn child as well as alimony and other costs. He would also be forced to sell off several assets, including the house we had once shared, to cover the financial obligations. As the terms were read aloud, I could see the defeat in Mark's eyes. He had gambled everything on his affair with Heather, convinced that he could discard me and start anew without consequence. But he had underestimated my resolve, my strength, and my willingness to fight for what was rightfully mine. After the proceedings concluded, Mark tried to approach me one last time. "Emily, please, can we talk? I never wanted to hurt you like this." I turned to face him, my expression steely and unwavering. "You had your chance, Mark. You chose to throw away our marriage for a fling, and now you have to live with the consequences." He opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Don't bother. It's over, Mark. You've lost everything. Your job, your money, and most importantly, your family." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone, the weight of his decisions finally catching up to him. In the weeks that followed, I focused on preparing for the arrival of my child, determined to create a secure and loving environment for them. Mark's betrayal still stung, but the satisfaction of seeing him face the consequences of his actions helped to dull the pain. As I settled into my new apartment, a sense of peace washed over me. I had taken control of my life, reclaimed my power, and ensured that my child would never have to suffer the same heartbreak and betrayal that I had endured. And as for Mark, well, let's just say that his troubles were only just beginning. In the months following the divorce, my life took an unexpected turn. Thanks to my father's mentorship and influence, I found myself rising through the ranks of the corporate world at a breakneck pace. It was a sharp contrast to the struggles Mark was facing in the wake of our split. Word of his infidelity had spread like wildfire, and before long he found himself out of a job, his once promising career in shambles. I'll never forget the day I ran into him at the grocery store. He looked like a shell of his former self, disheveled, unshaven, and carrying a burden of defeat on his shoulders. When he saw me, his eyes widened, and he quickly tried to duck down an aisle, but I called out to him, "Mark, is that you?" He froze, his shoulders slumping in resignation as he turned to face me. "Emily," he mumbled, unable to meet my gaze. "I barely recognized you," I said, taking in his appearance. "Life's been tough, I take it?" He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You could say that. After everything that happened, I lost my job, my house, pretty much everything." A part of me felt a twinge of pity for him, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of vindication. This was the price he had to pay for his betrayal. "And what about Heather?" I asked, unable to resist twisting the knife just a little bit. "I assume she's sticking by your side through all of this?" Mark's expression darkened, and he averted his gaze. "Heather left me," he muttered. "Once she found out I was broke, she took off. Said she didn't sign up for this." I couldn't help but let out a laugh at the irony of it all. "Well, what did you expect, Mark? You threw away a perfectly good marriage for her, and now she's done the same to you." His jaw clenched, and I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. "You don't have to rub it in, Emily. I know I screwed up, okay? I've paid the price for my mistakes." "Have you, though?" I countered, taking a step closer to him. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still living in denial. You haven't truly faced the consequences of your actions." He opened his mouth to respond, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Let me make something clear, Mark. You lost everything because of your own greed and selfishness. You chose to betray me, to throw away our marriage for a fling, and now you're reaping what you've sown." His shoulders slumped, and I could see the defeat in his eyes. He knew I was right. "I hope you learn from this, Mark," I continued. "I hope you understand the pain and heartbreak you've caused, not just to me but to everyone around you, because if you don't, you're destined to repeat the same mistakes over and over again." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone, a broken man consumed by the weight of his own actions. As I made my way through the rest of the store, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. It wasn't just the fact that I had won the divorce settlement or that I was thriving in my career. No, what truly mattered was that I had taken control of my life, refused to be a victim, and ensured that Mark faced the consequences of his betrayal. And as I rubbed my growing belly, feeling the gentle flutter of my unborn child, I knew that I had made the right choice. My child would never have to endure the pain and heartbreak that I had experienced. They would grow up knowing that their mother was a strong, resilient woman who fought for justice and refused to let anyone take advantage of her. From that day on, I vowed to be the best mother I could be, pouring all of my love and energy into creating a secure, nurturing environment for my child. And as for Mark, well, he would have to find his own way, living with the consequences of his actions for the rest of his life. The months flew by, and before I knew it, I found myself sitting in the plush leather chair of the CEO's office, the very same chair my father had occupied for decades. As I looked around at the sleek modern decor and breathtaking views of the city's skyline, a sense of pride and accomplishment washed over me. I had come so far, rising through the ranks with a determination and drive that had left my colleagues in awe. And now, here I was, taking over the reins of the company from my father, ready to lead it into a new era of success. As I settled into my new role, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me to this point. The pain and heartbreak of Mark's betrayal, the grueling legal battle, and the long road to rebuilding my life, it had all been worth it to get to where I was today. A soft knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts, and I looked up to see my assistant poking her head in. "Miss Anderson, you have a visitor." I frowned, glancing at my schedule. "I don't have any appointments scheduled for this afternoon." The assistant shifted uncomfortably. "It's your ex-husband, Mark. He's insisting on seeing you." A flicker of annoyance flickered within me, but I quickly tamped it down. Of course Mark would show up unannounced, thinking he could just waltz back into my life whenever it suited him. "Send him in," I said, straightening in my chair and adopting a cool, professional demeanor. A few moments later the door opened and Mark stepped into the office. He looked even more disheveled than the last time I'd seen him, his clothes rumpled and his eyes sunken. It was clear that life had not been kind to him since our divorce. "Emily," he said, his voice strained, "thank you for seeing me." I arched an eyebrow, refusing to let him see how his presence affected me. "What do you want, Mark?" He took a deep breath, his gaze darting around the opulent office. I wanted to apologize for everything." I let out a derisive snort. "A little late for that, don't you think?" His shoulders slumped and he took a step closer to my desk. "I know I can never make up for what I did to you, to us, but I want you to know that I regret it every single day." "Do you?" I challenged, leaning back in my chair. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're only sorry because you got caught and lost everything." Mark flinched as if I had struck him, but he didn't deny it. "You're right," he admitted softly. "I was selfish and arrogant. I thought I could have it all. The perfect wife, the mistress on the side, the picture-perfect life. But in the end, it all blew up in my face, and I lost everything that truly mattered." I studied him carefully, searching for any hint of deception or manipulation, but all I saw was a broken man, a shadow of his former self, consumed by the weight of his own mistakes. "I don't expect your forgiveness," he continued. "I just wanted you to know that I understand the gravity of what I've done, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends, even if it's never enough." A heavy silence hung in the air, and for a moment I considered offering him a sliver of forgiveness, a chance to absolve himself of the guilt that so clearly weighed him down. But then I remembered the pain he had caused, the trust he had shattered, and the future he had nearly robbed from me and my child. "You're right, Mark," I said, my voice low and steady. "You can't make amends for what you've done, not to me, and certainly not to our child." His eyes widened, and he opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "This child will grow up knowing the truth about their father, that he was a selfish, deceitful man who valued his own desires above everything else. They will know that you betrayed us in the worst possible way, and that you were too weak and cowardly to face the consequences." Mark's face crumpled, and I could see the impact of my words hitting him like a physical blow. But I didn't stop there. "You had your chance at happiness, Mark. You had a loving wife and the opportunity to be a father, but you threw it all away for a fleeting moment of pleasure. And now you'll have to live with that regret for the rest of your life." He opened his mouth, perhaps to plead or beg for forgiveness, but I held up my hand once more. "I think it's time for you to leave," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. And don't bother coming back. You lost the right to be a part of our lives a long time ago. With that, I turned away from him, dismissing him from my presence and my life once and for all. As he shuffled out of the office, his shoulders hunched in defeat, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I had faced the demons of my past, confronted the man who had nearly destroyed me, and emerged victorious. I had claimed my future with strength and resilience, leaving Mark to face the consequences of his betrayals alone, a cautionary tale of greed and deception. And as I gazed out over the city skyline, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, secure in the knowledge that I was a survivor, a fighter, and a force to be reckoned with. You always were the disappointment, Ethan. This house was never meant for you and your little family. Pack your things and leave by the weekend. We don't need you here anymore. Adrian's voice, sharp and condescending, cut through the air. I stood outside the dining room, clutching the doorframe. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan had been pacing, his frustration evident. I've put up with your arrogance and your endless criticisms for too long, Ethan shot back. We'll leave, but mark my words, you'll regret this decision. The moment hung heavy in the air as the argument simmered down. My heart ached for Ethan. He had always strived to keep the family together, to fulfill his father's wish, but Adrian's return had shattered the fragile peace we had managed to maintain. As I stepped into the room, Ethan turned toward me, his face a blend of anger and sorrow. Lila, we need to talk about what's next. Our life had turned upside down since we moved in. 3 months ago, Ethan's father, Harold, had called in a panic. His health was failing, and he needed support. Ethan, ever the dutiful son, agreed despite knowing how fraught the relationship with his mother and brother could be. Do you remember how reluctant you were, Ethan? I said softly, trying to offer some comfort. You weren't sure about moving in, but Harold needed us. You did the right thing. Ethan sighed. But at what cost, Lila? Adrian's back, and he's making our lives hell. Now we have to uproot our family again. We retreated to our bedroom, which Harold had kindly given us when we moved in. The worn walls and creaking floorboards had since become our little haven of sanity. Maybe this is our chance to find a place of our own, I suggested, sitting on the edge of the bed. Somewhere we can finally be at peace. Ethan nodded, though his worry was clear. We have to think about Logan, too. He's had enough upheaval already. He just started at a new school. Logan, our 17-year-old son, had been adapting well despite everything, but the constant tension in the house wasn't fair to him. We'll make it work, I said with conviction. We've been through worse. We can get through this too. Dinner that night was tense. Fiona, our 82-year-old mother-in-law, was her usual stern self, but tried to make small talk. Harold, frail yet kind, only managed a few words, but his eyes spoke volumes of apology and understanding. Adrian sat smugly, as if he had already won. Lila, could you pass the mashed potatoes? Adrian's voice oozed mock politeness. I clenched the serving spoon, but handed it over. Ethan barely touched his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. Later, as we lay in bed, Ethan turned to me, determination in his eyes. We'll pack up tomorrow and start looking for a new place first thing. We deserve a life free from all this. I squeezed his hand. Despite the turmoil, I believed in our ability to move forward. We had each other, and that was enough. Morning dawned, and the house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled it the night before. Ethan and I started packing our things, prioritizing the essentials. Logan helped, his usual teenage grumbling absent. He knew the gravity of the situation. Do you think we'll find something soon? Logan asked, folding his clothes into a suitcase. We will, Logan, Ethan replied firmly. We'll find a place where we can be happy. This is just a bump in the road. As we boxed up the last of our belongings, Harold shuffled into the room, leaning heavily on his cane. Are you sure about this, Ethan? There's no other way, Dad, Ethan said, his voice softening. Adrian has made it clear we're not welcome here. Harold's eyes grew misty. Your mother? She favors Adrian, but I never wanted this. I'm sorry things turned out this way. I placed a hand on Harold's arm. We know, Harold, you've always been kind to us. By midday, Adrian had made his presence known, sauntering into the room with a smug look on his face. Need any help moving out faster? He sneered. Ethan straightened, his fists clenching. We're handling it, Adrian. Don't worry about us. Adrian laughed. Oh, I'm not worried, just making sure you don't overstay your welcome. My jaw tightened, but I held my tongue. There was no point in engaging with him. By evening, Ethan's mother, Fiona, appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of indifference. Dinner's ready, she said curtly. You might as well eat before you go. The dining room felt colder than usual. Fiona and Adrian seemed to carry on as if nothing had happened, while Harold remained silent, his sadness palpable. We ate quickly, wanting to get the meal over with. Mom, could you stop pretending everything is fine? Logan suddenly spoke up, his frustration boiling over. This isn't fair. Fiona glanced at him, her lips pursed. Life isn't always fair, Logan. You'll understand when you're older. Ethan pushed his plate away and stood up. Enough. We're done here. We'll be gone by morning. He turned to Harold. Dad, take care. We'll keep in touch. Harold nodded sadly. Take care, son. We finished packing in silence, the heaviness of the situation wrapping around us like a shroud. As night fell, we squeezed into Logan's small room, sleeping on mattresses on the floor. Ethan's voice broke the quiet. Tomorrow, we'll find our new beginning. Remember, Lila, we're stronger together. I nodded in the dark, taking solace in his words. No matter what Adrian or Fiona threw our way, we would face it head on. Our family's bond was unbreakable, and that was more than enough. We arranged a moving van early the next morning and loaded our belongings with a mix of urgency and relief. Ethan arranged for a storage unit while we began our search for a new home. Logan, though visibly weary, kept his spirits high, cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Once we finished, we stood in the driveway, looking at the house one last time. Harold sat on the porch, watching us with a mournful expression. Fiona and Adrian were nowhere to be seen. Take care of yourself, Dad, Ethan called out. Harold nodded, giving a small wave. You too, son. Stay strong. We drove away, leaving behind the web of spite and manipulation. Within hours, we were checking out rental properties, hopeful that a fresh start was around the corner. Meanwhile, back at the house, Adrian began tightening his grip. He demanded the best meals, barking orders at Fiona, and treating Harold like a nuisance. Fiona's earlier coldness towards us was now thawed by Adrian's escalating arrogance, and she grew weary of her once favored son. By the end of the day, Adrian's demands had only increased. Why can't you keep up, Mom? Is it that hard to make a decent meal around here? Fiona sighed, her patience wearing thin. I'm doing my best, Adrian. Maybe you should help out instead of just criticizing. Adrian scoffed. Help out? That's not my job, Mom. That's what you're here for. Harold, watching the growing tension, finally spoke up. Adrian, this isn't right. We need to work together, not tear each other apart. Adrian shrugged off his father's words, continuing his tirade without a care in the world. Back in town, we found a modest house that seemed promising. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. As we began to settle in, Ethan's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. It's Mom. Are you going to answer? I asked, my curiosity piqued. He hesitated, then picked up. Hello, Mom. Fiona's voice was shaky. Ethan, I need your help. Adrian's, not what I imagined. He's too demanding. Ethan's expression hardened. You made your choice, Mom. You pushed us out. I know, Ethan, but Harold's health is getting worse and I can't manage everything, she pleaded. Ethan looked at me, seeking my input. I shook my head, firm in my resolve. We can't save everyone, Ethan, and we need to focus on us. He relayed the message to Fiona. I'm sorry, Mom, but we can't come back. We have to think about our family now. Fiona's sigh was filled with regret. I understand. As we ended the call, I hugged Ethan tightly. We did the right thing. They need to face the consequences of their actions. Ethan nodded, his eyes resolute. We have our own lives to rebuild. No more looking back. And with that, we began piecing together the fragments of our new life, basking in the freedom and opportunities ahead, all the while knowing that karma had its own way of setting things right. We settled into our new place quickly. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours, and that was all that mattered. As we unpacked, the tension began to lift. Logan seemed happier, and Ethan's shoulders were slightly less hunched. Just as we started to feel at home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Adrian standing there, his face twisted in a smug grin. What do you want, Adrian? I asked, barely keeping my composure. Adrian pushed past me into the living room. I've come to see if you're settling in well. Wanted to check up on my little brother and his lovely family. Ethan came out from the kitchen, his eyes narrowing. "Get out, Adrian. You're not welcome here." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Is that any way to greet family? I just wanted to see how you're doing." "We're doing fine, no thanks to you," Ethan snapped. "You have no business being here." Adrian chuckled darkly. "Oh, but I do. You see, Mom and Dad are struggling without your help. It's quite entertaining to watch." My blood boiled. "How can you be so heartless? They're your parents." Adrian shrugged. "They made their bed. Isn't that what you always say, Lila?" Ethan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "You've said what you came to say, now leave." Adrian looked around, feigning disappointment. "Such a pity. I was hoping for a cozy family reunion. But fine, I'll go for now. Remember, Ethan, you can run, but you can't hide from family responsibilities." With a final smirk, Adrian sauntered out, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. I turned to Ethan, my hands trembling. "We can't let him get to us. We need to focus on us, remember?" Ethan nodded, but the fire in his eyes was undeniable. "He's not going to ruin this for us, Lila, I promise." Days turned into weeks, and we found our rhythm. Meanwhile, reports from Fiona trickled in. It seemed Adrian's return had only added to their troubles. Harold's health was worsening, and Fiona found herself overwhelmed by Adrian's increasing demands and lack of support. One evening, the phone rang again. This time it was Harold. Ethan's face softened as he answered. "Dad, are you okay?" Harold's voice was weak but determined. "Ethan, I need to see you. Things are bad here. Adrian is unbearable. Your mother can't cope." Ethan's resolve wavered, but he looked at me and I shook my head. "We can bring Dad here, but we're not going back," I said firmly. Ethan relayed the message. "Dad, pack your things. You're coming to stay with us." Harold's relief was apparent. "Thank you, son. I don't know how much longer I could have lasted there." Hanging up, Ethan sighed. "It's the right thing to do, Lila. We'll make it work." I took his hand. "We're stronger together. We'll get through this." The next few days were a whirlwind as we prepared to bring Harold to our home. Despite the challenges, we held on to the belief that, together, we could face anything, and that, in time, Adrian and Fiona would reap the consequences of their own actions. The day Harold moved in with us marked a significant shift. His presence brought a mix of relief and underlying tension. We rearranged the small living room to accommodate his needs, determined to make him as comfortable as possible. "Thank you for taking me in," Harold said, settling into the recliner we had bought for him. "Your family," Ethan replied. "We look out for each other." As days passed, we fell into a routine. Harold's gentle demeanor contrasted sharply with Fiona's demanding nature and Adrian's arrogance, making it clear why Ethan felt so conflicted about leaving them behind. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Harold broke the silence. "I never wanted it to come to this. Adrian's behavior, it's inexcusable. Fiona, well, she's always had a blind spot for him." Ethan's face hardened. "Dad, we all make choices. I just wish Mom had seen the truth sooner." Harold nodded, sorrow etched on his features. "I hope she realizes it soon. Adrian's already caused too much damage." The phone rang, cutting through the moment. I answered, my stomach nodding at the sound of Fiona's voice. "Lila, it's Fiona. I need to talk to Ethan." I handed the phone over, mouthing, "It's his mom," to Ethan. He took it, leaning against the counter. "Mom? What is it?" Fiona's voice was strained. "Ethan, I need your help. Adrian's behavior is out of control. He's draining our finances and refuses to help with anything. I don't know what to do." Ethan took a deep breath. "Mom, we've heard about Adrian's actions, but you chose to support him over us. We can't keep fixing your mistakes." "But Ethan, I'm desperate," Fiona pleaded. "Harold's not there, and I can't manage alone." Ethan's face was set in stone. "We're taking care of Dad because it's the right thing to do. But we can't rescue you from the choices you made. You need to figure this out." Tears welled in Fiona's voice. "Please, Ethan, I can't do this alone." Ethan's resolve showed no cracks. "You have Adrian, Mom. He's your son, too." He hung up, exhaling deeply. "We have our own lives to lead, Lila. We can't keep getting drawn back." The next morning, as Harold and I sat on the porch, he looked at me with a sad smile. "You've given me a second chance at peace, Lila. No matter what Fiona says or does, you've done more than enough." I squeezed his hand. "We're just glad you're here with us." Later, Ethan took Logan out for some father-son time, while Harold and I enjoyed the quiet. The weight of the situation still lingered. but amidst it all there was a sense of newfound hope and determination. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our small newfound sanctuary, we felt a glimmer of the future, one free from the past's relentless grip. In those quiet moments, we knew that, despite the chaos behind us, we were forging a path forward stronger than ever before. Life in our new home settled into a calm, manageable routine. Harold's presence was a constant reminder of the past, yet also a testament to the strength of our family. He found peace in the simple joys, afternoon walks with Logan, quiet meals together, and watching old westerns in the evenings. One afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, the phone rang. I answered, recognizing Fiona's strained voice on the other end. "Lila, I need to speak with Ethan. It's important." I handed the phone to Ethan, who took it with a look of resignation. "Mom, what is it now?" Fiona's voice wavered. "Ethan, Adrian's situation has gotten worse. His scandals hit the news, and he's lost his job. He's threatening to leave, and we're on the brink of losing the house. I don't know who else to turn to." Ethan's face was unreadable. "Mom, we warned you about Adrian, but you chose to ignore us. Now you want us to clean up his mess again?" "There's no one else, Ethan. Please, we need help." Fiona's voice cracked. Ethan took a long, deep breath. "We'll think about what we can do, but don't expect everything to go back to the way it was." He hung up and sat down heavily, looking at me. "Adrian's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Fiona wants our help, but I'm not sure what we can or should do." I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've done our best to help. We need to protect our family now." As the days passed, Fiona's calls became more desperate. Adrian's downfall was public, and his wife had left him, taking what little they had left. The once confident brother now found himself at the mercy of the same parents he'd so easily disregarded when things were good. One evening, while Logan was out with friends, we gathered in the living room. Ethan broke the silence. "I've decided we'll help Dad move in with us permanently. We can't do more than that." Harold nodded, looking relieved. "I never wanted to be a burden. I just want peace in my last years." The next morning, Fiona called again, her voice heavy with resignation. "Ethan, I know I've made mistakes and I've favored Adrian unfairly, but please, understand, we're desperate." Ethan was firm yet kind. "I'm sorry, Mom, but Dad's welcome here. As for you and Adrian, you need to find your own way. We can't save you from the choices you made." Fiona's sobs echoed through the phone. "I understand. Thank you, Ethan." She hung up, leaving a weight in the air. As we helped Harold settle further into our home, the reality of our decisions sunk in. We had chosen the path that protected our family, though it left Fiona and Adrian to contend with their actions alone. In the end, we found solace in knowing we had done right by those who deserved it, and that, sometimes, life's harshest lessons had to be learned the hard way. Our newfound peace, earned through hardship, was the beginning of a brighter, more hopeful future. The air was crisp as we prepared breakfast that Sunday morning. I could sense a shift in Harold's demeanor. He seemed more content, more at peace. The house, now marked by quiet resilience, felt like a safe haven. As we gathered around the table, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up at us. "It's Fiona again." "Should I answer?" I nodded. "It's better to know what's happening," Ethan answered, his voice careful. "Hi, Mom." Fiona sounded tired and defeated. "Ethan, I understand your decision. I just wanted you to know that Adrian left. He took what he could and disappeared. We're losing the house." Ethan was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Mom. I hope you find a way to get through this. Maybe reach out for some external help." Fiona sighed. "I'm trying, Ethan. I'm trying to make sense of everything." After the call, we ate in silence. Harold finally broke it. "You did what you had to do, son. Don't ever doubt that." Ethan nodded. "I know, Dad. It's just complicated." Later that day, as Ethan and I sat in the living room, Logan came home from playing basketball. He threw his bag down and flopped onto the couch. "Dad, are Grandma and Uncle Adrian okay?" Ethan hesitated. "They're going through a tough time, Logan, but we've done all that we can." Logan nodded, his young face already showing signs of understanding life's complexities. "I hope they figure things out. But I'm glad Grandpa is with us." Days turned into weeks, and our lives settled into a peaceful rhythm. One evening, an unexpected visitor knocked on our door. Ethan opened it to find a disheveled Adrian standing there. "What do you want, Adrian?" Ethan's voice was cold, filled with the history of betrayal. Adrian looked desperate. I need a place to stay, Ethan. Everything fell apart. I have nowhere else to go. Ethan's jaw tightened. You put yourself in that position. We won't let you bring your chaos here. Adrian's eyes darted around, looking for a way in. Please, Ethan. I've lost everything. I'm your brother. No, Adrian, Ethan replied firmly. You are reaping what you sowed. Leave. Adrian lingered, but the door was shut firmly in his face. Inside, Harold nodded approvingly. Sometimes, tough love is the only way. As we settled into a movie that evening, the weight of our decisions felt lighter. The consequences of Adrian's actions were his to bear alone. In the coming months, we experienced a sense of peace and stability that had long eluded us. Logan excelled in school, and I found joy in a part-time job at the local community center. One evening, as Logan prepared for a college visit, Harold looked around the dinner table and smiled. It's good to see everyone thriving. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. We've come a long way and learned a lot. We're stronger than ever. We raised our glasses in a silent toast to the journey we had endured and to the bright, uncharted path that lay ahead. Though the scars of the past remained, they were overshadowed by the love and unity that now defined our family. The bright sun heralded a new beginning as we prepared Harold for Logan's college visit. Our excitement was palpable. Logan was thriving, and his acceptance into a prestigious college added joy to our lives. Ready for the trip, Dad? Ethan asked, helping Harold into the car. Harold smiled, his eyes twinkling. I wouldn't miss this for the world. The drive was filled with laughter and anticipation. Logan talked about his plans, and we shared our hopes for his future. As we approached the campus, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. It's Mom again. Do you want to answer? I asked gently. Ethan's brows knitted together. I'll call her back later. Today is about Logan. We parked and began our tour of the beautiful campus. Logan's eyes sparkled with excitement, and Harold's enthusiasm was infectious. Watching Logan navigate through the possibilities reminded us why we had made the tough choices we did. By evening, we had checked into a cozy bed and breakfast. After a hearty dinner, as we settled into our rooms, Ethan finally returned Fiona's call. Ethan, thank you for calling back. Fiona's voice cracked, filled with exhaustion. Adrian, he's hit rock bottom. He's lost everything and has been arrested for fraud. I don't know what to do. Ethan took a deep breath. Mom, you need to reach out to the proper authorities and get some help. We've done everything we can. It's up to you and Adrian now. Fiona sobbed quietly. I understand. I just wish I'd seen things sooner. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Ethan clenched his jaw, then softened. It's in the past now. Focus on making things right. We can't fix this for you, but I hope you find the strength to move forward. After he hung up, Ethan sighed deeply. It's never easy, is it? I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. No, but we're making the right decisions for our family. The next morning, we continued our tour. By lunchtime, Logan had already made a few friends and explored enough to feel confident in his choice. Harold beamed with pride, and Ethan looked more relaxed than he had in months. As we prepared to head back home, Harold spoke up. This visit, it's a reminder of what we've accomplished as a family. Logan's future is bright, and we've built something strong and enduring. I nodded, tears welling up. We've gone through so much, but it's brought us closer together. Ethan squeezed my hand. We'll keep moving forward. Together. The drive home was quieter, filled with reflections and hopes for the future. As we pulled into the driveway, it felt like returning to a sanctuary, a place we had fought for and earned. We helped Harold inside and settled back into our routine. The weight of the past had lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and anticipation for the future. That evening, we gathered around the dinner table once more. To new beginnings, Ethan said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, we echoed, clinking our glasses together. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I looked around at my family, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready for whatever lay ahead. I stared at Lucas in disbelief, his words a knife twisting in my gut. You want a divorce? Because of her? I gestured towards the young woman beside him, her cold eyes appraising me with disdain. Lucas shrugged nonchalantly. Emily understands me better than you ever did. She's not some washed-up housewife living in the past. my throat constricted as I fought back tears. How could the man I'd loved, the one I sacrificed so much for, treat me this way? But, after everything we've been through together— "Oh, spare me the waterworks," he sneered. "You knew this was coming. We've been over for years." He held out the divorce papers, his lips curling into a smirk. "Just sign, and we can make this quick and painless." Numb, I reached for the papers with a trembling hand. A part of me wanted to fight, to scream and rage against this injustice, but the rest of me felt utterly defeated, crushed by the weight of his callous betrayal. As my shaky signature marked the end of our marriage, Lucas snatched the papers back, his eyes already dismissing me. "There, that wasn't so hard, was it? Emily and I will take the house, of course. You can keep whatever scraps you want." I flinched at his cruelty, memories of happier times flickering through my mind like a cruel taunt. How had we fallen so far? Later that night, I packed what little I could into a battered suitcase, tears streaming down my face. This house, which I had poured my heart and soul into making a home, now felt like a hollow shell, devoid of warmth or love. As I dragged my belongings to the door, I caught a glimpse of the faded family photo on the wall. A happier time when Lucas's smile had been genuine, and his eyes held nothing but adoration for me. A bitter pang of loss twisted in my chest. I was truly alone now, cast aside like worthless trash. The harsh reality of my situation hit me like a physical blow, and I sank to the floor, overcome by the overwhelming sense of despair and betrayal. The days that followed passed in a blur of misery. I found myself in a dingy one-bedroom apartment, the bare walls and stained carpets a far cry from the comfortable home I'd known. Each night I lay awake, haunted by the memory of Lucas's cruel words and the sting of his betrayal. Survival became a daily struggle. With no job and a rapidly dwindling savings, I was forced to take on whatever menial work I could find, waitressing, cleaning houses, anything to keep a roof over my head. The indignity of it all was a bitter pill to swallow, but I had no choice but to endure. One evening, as I dragged my weary body to the laundromat, a kind-eyed elderly man offered me a warm smile. "Rough day?" I managed a weak nod, too exhausted to muster a response. "I'm Walter," he said, his voice gentle. "You look like you could use a friend." Normally, I would have brushed off such an overture, but something about Walter's genuine concern broke through the shell I'd built around myself. Before I knew it, I found myself pouring out the sordid tale of Lucas's betrayal, the words tumbling out in a torrent of pent-up anguish. To my surprise, Walter listened with patient understanding, his kind eyes reflecting a depth of empathy that touched my soul. "That scoundrel doesn't deserve a woman like you," he said, his voice tinged with righteous indignation. In that moment, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't experienced in far too long. Hope. Perhaps I wasn't as alone in this world as I'd thought. Over the following weeks, Walter became a constant presence in my life, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. Bit by bit, I found myself opening up to him, drawn to his gentle wisdom and unwavering kindness. One day, as we shared a cup of coffee in his immaculate suburban home, Walter revealed a startling truth. "You know, I knew your mother many years ago," he said wistfully. "We were very close, once upon a time." My breath caught in my throat as he regaled me with tales of my mother's vivacious spirit and unwavering strength, painting a picture of a woman I'd never truly known. With each anecdote, I felt a newfound connection to my roots, a sense of belonging I'd been desperately craving. As Walter's story unfolded, an even more shocking revelation came to light. He was my estranged father, torn from my mother's life by the cruel whims of fate. Tears stung my eyes as he expressed his deep regret for missing out on so many precious years, his voice thick with emotion. In that moment, I realized that Walter was more than just a kind stranger. He was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in the darkest of storms. And as I gazed into his eyes, so much like my own, I knew that together we could weather any tempest that lay ahead. Walter's revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. My estranged father, the man I'd longed for my entire life, had been right here all along. A flurry of emotions swirled within me. Joy, anger, disbelief. But above all else, a profound sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't alone in this world after all. "Why didn't you try to find me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and hope. Walter's eyes were heavy with remorse. I did try, for years, but your mother, she made it clear she wanted a clean break. I respected her wishes, even though it broke my heart. I nodded slowly, understanding dawning. My mother had been fiercely independent, determined to make it on her own after the heartbreak of my father leaving. Still, a part of me wished he'd tried harder. As if sensing my inner turmoil, Walter reached out and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I know I can never make up for the lost time, but I'd like to try, if you'll have me. In that moment, I made a decision, one that would change the course of my life forever. I'd like that, I said, my voice thick with emotion. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind as I moved into Walter's warm, inviting home. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt a sense of belonging, of being truly cared for. Walter doted on me like a doting father, his kindness and compassion a soothing balm for my wounded soul. Yet even as I slowly began to heal, the specter of Lucas's betrayal lingered like a dark cloud, casting a pall over my newfound happiness. Try as I might, I couldn't shake the bitter sting of his cruelty, the way he'd so callously discarded me for that young, vapid woman. One evening, as Walter and I shared a comfortable silence in his cozy living room, he fixed me with a penetrating gaze. "You know, I used to be a private investigator," he said, his voice taking on a conspiratorial tone. My interest piqued. I leaned forward, hanging on his every word. "If you wanted, I could look into this Lucas fellow," he offered. "See if there's more to his story than meets the eye." A spark of determination flickered within me. Could this be my chance to finally uncover the truth, to expose Lucas for the lying snake he was? I squared my shoulders, meeting Walter's gaze with steely resolve. "Do it," I said, my voice laced with conviction. "I want to know everything." From that moment on, Walter became my ally, my co-conspirator in uncovering the sordid depths of Lucas's deception. Together, we pored over records, followed leads, and slowly but surely, a shocking picture began to emerge. It turned out that Lucas's infidelity was just the tip of the iceberg. He'd been embezzling funds from his company for years, using the ill-gotten gains to finance his lavish lifestyle and fund his trysts with Emily. That vapid woman wasn't just his mistress. She was his partner in crime, leeching off his stolen wealth like a parasite. As the evidence mounted, a newfound sense of purpose coursed through my veins. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about exposing the truth and watching their carefully constructed facade come crumbling down around them. With Walter by my side, I knew I had the strength to face down my demons and reclaim the life that had been so callously torn from me. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. With the truth about Lucas's misdeeds laid bare before me, a newfound sense of purpose took root within my soul. No longer was I the meek, downtrodden woman he had so callously discarded. I was a woman reborn, fueled by a righteous fury that burned brighter with each damning revelation. Walter's private investigation firm became my second home, a hub of activity where we plotted and strategized, determined to bring Lucas's house of lies crashing down around him. Day after day, I immersed myself in the work, poring over financial records and piecing together the intricate web of deceit he had spun. With each new piece of evidence we uncovered, I felt my confidence growing, the shackles of self-doubt that had once bound me falling away. I was no longer the naive, trusting wife blinded by love. I was a force to be reckoned with, armed with the truth and an unwavering resolve to see justice served. "You're a natural at this," Walter would often remark, a hint of pride in his voice, as he watched me methodically dissect the case files. "Like you were born for it." And indeed, I found myself thriving in this new environment, my analytical mind reveling in the challenge of unraveling the tangled threads of Lucas's misdeeds. It was as if a part of me that had lain dormant for years was finally awakening, stretching its wings and embracing the thrill of the hunt. Yet, even as we built an ironclad case against Lucas and his co-conspirator Emily, a part of me hesitated, torn between the burning desire for vengeance and the lingering embers of the love I had once felt for him. "What do you plan to do with all this?" Walter asked one evening, his steady gaze fixed on me. I faltered, the weight of the decision bearing down on me like a physical force. I don't know," I admitted, my voice wavering. "Part of me wants to see them pay for what they've done, to watch their lives crumble the way they destroyed mine. But another part? Walter nodded in understanding, his eyes kind yet resolute. Whatever path you choose, I'll stand by you. But remember, Jennifer, this is about more than just revenge. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and ensuring they can never hurt anyone else the way they've hurt you. His words resonated deep within me, stoking the embers of my determination. He was right. This wasn't just about settling a personal score. It was about righting a wrong, about exposing the truth, and ensuring that the scales of justice were balanced once more. With a renewed sense of purpose, I squared my shoulders and met Walter's gaze head-on. "You're right," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "It's time to bring them down, once and for all." From that moment on, I attacked the case with a singular focus, meticulously gathering every shred of evidence, every damning detail that would seal Lucas and Emily's fate. I was no longer the victim. I was the hunter, and they were my prey. And when the time came to strike, I would be ready, armed with the truth and an unshakable resolve to see justice served, no matter the cost. As the weeks ticked by, our case against Lucas and Emily grew stronger by the day. With each new piece of evidence we uncovered, the web of lies they had spun became more tangled, more inescapable. Yet, even as we closed in on our quarry, a part of me remained guarded, wary of allowing myself to hope for true vindication. It was during this time that I met Peter, a sharp-eyed lawyer who had been brought in to consult on the legal aspects of our case. From the moment we shook hands, I felt an instant connection, a spark of understanding that went beyond mere professional courtesy. "You've been through hell," he remarked one day, his piercing gaze seeming to see straight through to my very soul. "But you're not letting it break you. That takes real strength." His words resonated within me, stirring something long dormant, a flicker of attraction, of hope for a future beyond the all-consuming quest for justice that had consumed my every waking thought. As we worked side by side, poring over legal documents and strategizing our next moves, I found myself drawn to Peter's unwavering confidence, his steadfast belief in the power of truth and accountability. He was a kindred spirit, a man who understood the weight of what we were undertaking and welcomed the challenge with open arms. "We're going to nail these bastards," he would say, his jaw set in determination. "They'll wish they never crossed paths with us." And as the days turned to weeks, that shared sense of purpose blossomed into something deeper, something that brought a warmth to my heart I hadn't felt in far too long. Peter became my rock, my anchor in the storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me as the endgame drew near. Finally, the day arrived, the moment we had been building towards, the reckoning that would either see justice served or leave us adrift in the wreckage of our failed crusade. With trembling hands, I donned my armor, a crisp suit that lent me an air of authority, a mask of steely resolve to hide the maelstrom of nerves churning within. Peter met my gaze, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and resolve. "You've got this," he murmured, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "It's time to make them pay." And so we marched into battle, our heads held high, armed with the truth and an unshakable belief in the power of justice. As we confronted Lucas and Emily with the damning evidence of their misdeeds, I watched their carefully constructed facades crumble, their lies exposed for all to see. The looks on their faces, a potent mixture of shock, fear, and desperate denial, will be forever seared into my memory. In that moment, I realized that true vengeance wasn't about inflicting pain or seeking retribution. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth, and ensuring that these two toxic individuals could never victimize another soul. As the legal proceedings unfolded, as Lucas and Emily were stripped of their ill-gotten wealth and faced the prospect of prison time, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, the weight of anger, of bitterness, of the all-consuming need for revenge that had driven me for so long. And when it was all said and done, when the dust had settled and the battle was won, I turned to Peter with a sense of overwhelming gratitude. Without him, without his unwavering support and belief in me, I might have faltered, might have lost my way in the darkness. But now, as I gazed into his eyes, I saw not just a trusted ally, but the promise of a future where I could finally leave the past behind and embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. With Peter by my side, we strode into Lucas's office, our footsteps echoing like a death knell. He looked up, his face contorting into a sneer when he saw me. "Well, if it isn't the bitter ex-wife," he sneered. "Come to beg for scraps?" I met his gaze unflinchingly, my resolve fortified by months of meticulous preparation. "Actually, Lucas, we're here to end your little charade once and for all." Peter stepped forward, a thick file in his hands. "We have all the evidence we need to prove your embezzlement scheme. The jig is up." Lucas's smug expression faltered, his eyes darting nervously between us. "Embezzlement? That's absurd. I'm a respected businessman." "Save it," I spat. "We know everything, the offshore accounts, the kickbacks, all of it. And we have proof that Emily was in on the whole thing." As if on cue, Emily sidled into the room, her face pale. "Lucas, what is she talking about?" He turned on her, his eyes wild. "You said you covered our tracks. You useless little—" "Enough." Peter's voice cracked like a whip, silencing them both. "The evidence speaks for itself. Unless you want to add obstruction to the charges, I suggest you start talking." For a long, tense moment, silence reigned. Then, like a deflating balloon, Lucas slumped in his chair, all bravado fled. All right, you got me." I watched, numb, as he laid it all out. The years of skimming funds, the lies, the despicable way he had used and manipulated Emily. Each sordid revelation was like a twist of the knife, but I remained steadfast, drinking in his downfall with a sense of grim satisfaction. Emily, for her part, quickly turned on him, her self-preservation instinct kicking in. "He made me do it," she wailed. "He said if I didn't help, he'd ruin me." Lucas sneered. "Don't play the victim now, you little—" "That's enough," Peter cut him off. "We have all we need. The authorities are already on their way." As if on cue, the door burst open, and a team of stern-faced officers flooded in. I watched, numb, as they slapped handcuffs on Lucas and Emily, their protestations falling on deaf ears. In that moment, as they were led away in disgrace, I felt a profound sense of vindication wash over me. The facade had finally crumbled, the lies exposed for all to see. And I, the woman they had so callously discarded, had been the architect of their downfall. In the days and weeks that followed, the legal proceedings unfolded like a well-oiled machine. Lucas and Emily's empire crumbled, their ill-gotten wealth seized, their reputations in tatters. And through it all, I remained a silent observer, drinking in their suffering with a sense of grim satisfaction. Yet, even as I savored their comeuppance, a part of me felt hollow. The all-consuming drive for revenge that had fueled me for so long had been sated, leaving an emptiness in its wake. It was Peter who helped me find my way back, his steady presence and unwavering support a lifeline in those dark moments. "You did the right thing," he would remind me, his eyes shining with pride. "They got what they deserved, but you're so much more than this." Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild the pieces of my shattered life, shedding the anger and bitterness that had weighed me down for far too long. With Peter by my side, I found the strength to look towards the future, to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. And as the dust settled, as Lucas and Emily faded into distant memories, I realized that true victory wasn't about watching them suffer. It was about reclaiming my own power, my own sense of self-worth. They had tried to break me, to strip me of everything that made me whole. But in the end, I had risen from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever before. And that, more than any punishment they could face, was the greatest victory of all. The courtroom was abuzz with hushed whispers and sidelong glances as Lucas and Emily were led in, their once immaculate appearances now disheveled and unkempt. As they took their seats, Lucas shot me a venomous glare, his eyes burning with impotent rage. I met his gaze unflinchingly, my spine ramrod straight. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the final reckoning for their misdeeds. The trial unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck, each witness and piece of evidence further exposing the sordid depths of their betrayal. I watched, my heart pounding, as the prosecution methodically dismantled their flimsy defense, presenting an overwhelming case that left no room for doubt. When it was my turn to take the stand, I felt a surge of adrenaline course through my veins. This was my chance to confront them, to lay bare the pain and anguish they had inflicted upon me. "Miss Warner," the prosecutor began, his voice measured and calm, "in your own words, please describe the events leading up to your discovery of the embezzlement scheme." I took a deep breath, my gaze flickering to where Lucas and Emily sat, their faces twisted into matching sneers of contempt. It started with the lies, I began, my voice steady and unwavering. The late nights at the office, the sudden influx of cash that Lucas couldn't quite explain away. As I spoke, recounting the gut-wrenching moments when the truth had begun to unravel, I saw Emily shift uncomfortably in her seat, her bravado faltering. And then there was Emily. I continued, turning my attention to the woman who had so willingly participated in my destruction. The young, vapid thing he had taken as his mistress, his partner in crime. Lucas opened his mouth, no doubt to spew forth some vile retort, but the judge silenced him with a stern glare. They thought they could just discard me like I was nothing, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained emotion. They took everything from me. My home, my dignity, my sense of self-worth. And for what? Greed? Lust? A pathetic attempt to recapture their youth? The words poured forth like a torrent, each one lancing the fetid boil of anger and betrayal that had festered within me for so long. I laid it all bare. The sleepless nights, the soul-crushing loneliness, the utter despair of having the one person I trusted most violate that trust in the most cruel and callous way imaginable. By the time I finished, there was not a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the judge, a weathered veteran of countless trials, seemed visibly shaken by the rawness of my testimony. As for Lucas and Emily, their smug facades had crumbled, replaced by pallid masks of fear and realization. They knew, in that moment, that they had lost, that the web of lies they had so carefully constructed was unraveling before their very eyes. The verdict, when it came, was swift and decisive. Guilty on all counts. Lucas and Emily were led away in chains, their futures reduced to a fleeting glimpse of freedom before the cold, unforgiving walls of a prison cell. In the aftermath, as the courtroom emptied and the buzz of activity faded, I found myself enveloped in Peter's warm embrace, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and relief. "You did it," he murmured, brushing a stray tear from my cheek. "You faced them down and won." And in that moment, as the weight of everything I had endured finally lifted from my shoulders, I realized that he was right. I had won, not just the battle against Lucas and Emily, but the war against the demons that had threatened to consume me. With Peter by my side, I knew that the future was bright, filled with endless possibilities, and the promise of a life lived on my own terms. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt truly free. As we left the courthouse, hand in hand, I couldn't help but steal one last glance at Lucas and Emily, their once smug countenances now twisted into masks of dejection and defeat. They had tried to break me, to strip me of everything that made me whole, but in the end, their cruelty had only served to forge me into something stronger, something unbreakable. And as the courthouse doors swung shut behind us, I knew that I had finally closed the book on that dark chapter of my life, ready to embrace the future with open arms and an unshakable resolve to never let anyone hold that kind of power over me again. In the aftermath of Lucas and Emily's downfall, a newfound sense of purpose took root within me. No longer was I the broken, downtrodden woman they had sought to destroy. I was a phoenix, reborn from the ashes of their betrayal, stronger and more resilient than ever before. With Peter by my side, I threw myself into the work at Walter's private investigation firm, relishing the thrill of uncovering the truth and righting wrongs. Each case we took on was a chance to make a difference, to ensure that justice prevailed, no matter how tangled the web of lies. "You're a natural at this," Peter would often remark, his eyes shining with admiration as I deftly unraveled the most complex of mysteries. "It's like you were born for it." And he was right. In the world of private investigation, I had found my true calling, a path that allowed me to channel the hard-won lessons of my past into something meaningful and purposeful. As the months rolled by, Walter watched my transformation with a mixture of pride and awe, his fatherly affection shining through in every interaction. "You've come so far, my dear," he would say, his eyes misty with emotion. "Your mother would be so proud." His words were a balm to the lingering wounds within me, a reminder that even in my darkest moments, I had never been truly alone. Walter had been my rock, my steadfast ally in the fight against Lucas and Emily's villainy, and now, He was my mentor, guiding me towards a future brighter than I could have ever imagined. Together, we tackled case after case, our reputation for uncompromising integrity and dogged determination spreading like wildfire through the city. From missing persons to corporate espionage, no mystery was too complex, no challenge too daunting for our tight-knit team. And through it all, Peter remained my anchor, his unwavering love and support a constant source of strength and inspiration. "You're a force to be reckoned with," he would whisper in the quiet moments, his arms wrapped around me in a tender embrace. "Nothing can stop you now." As the years passed, our bond only grew stronger, our shared understanding and respect blossoming into a love deeper than I had ever known. And when Peter finally dropped to one knee, a simple diamond ring glittering in his palm, I knew that my journey had come full circle, from the depths of despair to the heights of pure, unbridled joy. "Yes," I breathed, tears of happiness streaking my cheeks as he slipped the ring onto my finger. 1,000 times, yes. In that moment, as our lips met in a searing kiss, I knew that I had finally left the ghost of Lucas and Emily behind for good. They were mere footnotes in the grand tapestry of my life, footnotes that had ultimately shaped me into the woman I was always meant to become. And as Peter and I embarked on our new life together, hand in hand and hearts overflowing with love, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the trials that had forged me into someone unbreakable. Gratitude for the people who had stood by me through it all. And gratitude for the future that stretched out before us, ripe with endless possibilities. Walter's retirement shortly after our wedding only solidified my path, as he passed the reins of the firm to me with a knowing smile and a hearty embrace. "It's all yours now, my dear," he murmured, his eyes shining with pride. "Go out there and show the world what you're made of." And as I stood at the helm of the firm that had become my second home, surrounded by the steadfast team that had become my family, I knew that Walter's words rang true. The road ahead was paved with challenges, but I was ready to face whatever life threw my way, to fight for justice and truth with every fiber of my being. Because in the end, that was my true victory. Not the downfall of Lucas and Emily, but the realization that I was so much more than they had ever given me credit for. I was a survivor, a warrior, a woman who had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. And as I looked out over the city that had been the battleground for so many hard-fought battles, I knew that my journey was just beginning. The future was an open book, waiting to be written, and I was holding the pen.